Welcome to you all to the 16th Greener Shipping Summit, June 2024. In a time for fast-changing conditions for shipping, getting the right information and put it to use has never been so important. The Greener Shipping Summit recognizes this. Organized by Newsfront Naftyliaki, and once again with the cooperation and under the auspices of Martekma, today's program will involve some excellent panelists discussing where shipping is heading and how best to get there. The importance of today's discussion is underlined by the strong support given by our sponsors, which are listed here, and by the presence of you, the delegates. I will now hand over to Summit's Chairman Panos Kourkoudis, who will get today's event underway.
Thank you, Natasha. Good morning to all. We have to start, even if we don't have the attendance still here, because we have to keep the schedule. And then we know that the streets are, the traffic is very heavy and parking is also difficult. So starting later on, I think we're going to have more people here. We are honored to have with us as a keynote speaker Mr. Dimitris Farfalios, who is the chairman of Intercargo. He is very well known and one of the very few ship owners who is so much involved with the regulation, with the knowledge, and his technical background and his work so many years make him a unique personality in the international shipping. So I will invite Mr. Farfalios to give us his speaking notice today. Thank you.
Thank you, Panos. I was looking around to see who he was talking about, but good. Esteemed and honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's wonderful to be here, and I really would like to thank warmly Newsfront Naftyliaki, Martekma, and the eminent sponsors for allowing me to address you today. It is no secret that decarbonization and energy efficiency has been at the forefront of ship owners and operators' thinking for several years now. But we cannot achieve the IMO goals without safety. And it also goes without saying that shipping is an extremely broad term, covering so many sectors, whether it's dry bulk, tankers, gas carriers, ro-ros, car carriers, ferries, cruise ships, and many, many more. But shipping, however, can be divided into two basic economic models. That's the liner model and the tramp bulk model, which includes all solid, liquid, and gas bulk cargoes. And in order to develop the right regulations for decarbonization and safety, we must help our regulators to understand the fundamental difference between shipping's two basic economic models and the role of the time charterer as the commercial manager of most tramp bulk vessels and indeed many container ships. But in order to achieve decarbonization, our industry needs a plentiful supply of truly green alternative fuels which are safe. And at the same time, energy-saving technologies for both new building and existing vessels are developing at a furious pace with the help of AI and computing power that we could only have dreamed about a few years ago. Fundamental to the new fuels and technologies are our seafarers. And a study has shown that perhaps 450,000 seafarers will need retraining globally to handle the new fuels and technologies necessary to push the decarbonization of shipping forward. And again, Their safety must be a priority. And we must also not forget the training and education of our shoreside staff, who are also vital to the safe and green operation of our vessels. Training today, both on board and ashore, has accelerated in technology and in availability. And this wonderful summit today will concentrate on new technologies, energy efficiency, education, and training. These are all so relevant both today and in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and please enjoy this great summit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fafalios. In this summit today, usually the Greener Shipping Summit is focused on technical solutions, innovations, and problems that we face during the operation of the ships. But this summit today will have 3 sections, and 2 of them are actually focused on training and education. As Mr. Fafalios pointed out just before, we have 450,000 seafarers that they have to be retrained and in what we're expecting to be a truly green alternative fuel. So in the first panel, we're going to have the new technologies and education. We have people from the technical institutions, from marine academies, and the moderator is Mr. David Taylor, Head of Curriculum, Lloyd's Maritime Academy. So I will pass the microphone to him to introduce the other people on the panel and to have the discussion.
Thank you very much, Panos. As we are probably all aware, the division between decarbonisation and the technical solutions that are going to be leading our fleet over the next generation and the education of our seafarers are 2 issues that are completely entwined with one another. And to talk about the 2 separately will miss some key elements that we need to consider. So this panel is going to be looking at what our ships and our crews of the future will look like and how we are going to train and develop those seafarers. So if I may, I would like for the panelists to introduce themselves. Andros, can we start with you, please?
Yes, thank you. My name is Angelos Pantouvakis. I'm professor at the University of Piraeus and Dean of the School of Maritime and Industry, engineer by profession. And after having spent more than 25 years in the industry, I came up to the university around 2010. My area, I think that I'm working a little bit on crew, on employment and human resource management. So, David, I think it's more than enough.
Thank you. And Natasha?
Good morning, all. My name is Natasha Kouvertari. I'm representing today the Lloyd's Register Maritime Decarbonization Hub. I'm a project manager managing first mover initiatives. One of those is also the Maritime Just Transition Task Force, which is a project that we will be given the opportunity to talk more about today, as well as other regional initiatives and Lloyd's Register initiatives on the issue of education, skills, and competencies. Thank you.
Thank you. George?
Yes. Thank you, David. Thank you, Natasha. Well, my name is George Kevis. I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I have spent most of my career on the R&D sector, and now I'm running Kleos. Kleos is a joint collaboration between Onassis and Livanos group of companies, and I like to refer to it as a small startup of R&D and innovation. And what we do, we assess, we evaluate decarbonization and efficiency technologies. We also develop our own. And I think that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. And Kostas?
Good morning from me as well. I'm Kostas Spyrou, naval architect and marine engineer by education, professor of naval architecture in the National Technical University of Athens for 25 years. And I'm specialized on modeling methodologies that can be used for ship design and operation with a focus on safety problems.
Thank you, Kostas. And finally, myself, I started my career as a naval architect and then as a marine surveyor, both in design appraisal and new build and existing ships, working for Lloyd's Register, before moving into the energy sector and leading learning and development for Lloyd's Register for energy, and have now been head of curriculum for Lloyd's Maritime Academy for 2.5 years. The way we're going to run this session today is for you. This session is for you to answer and to discuss your questions and your concerns. So I would like to take questions from the floor throughout today's session. If you have a question, please put your hand up and a microphone will come to you. But to start off with, I would like to ask a question to Kostas. What do you feel the ships and the crews of the future will look like? And what do you think the key challenges will be?
Thank you, David. I think this is a question that can receive obviously many answers, because everything depends on uncertain factors that can actually influence the development of technology and the direction of technology in the future. So you cannot really be completely sure what will be happening in 10 or 15 or 50 years. Of course, there is a certain direction, and greener propulsors, for example, seems to be a definite trend. So we can say that we will be moving in that direction. But what exactly technology will be adopted to a large scale, this is a matter that is not so simple to say at this moment. Of course, all these matters depend also on how the Earth behaves in that period, because if we have phenomena that make us feel a little bit scared about the future, then we will be rushing to implement solutions which may be not so mature at that moment. So in fact, we live in a certain world, and in fact we cannot just say things without any evidence that this evolution will happen. Now, data is another big trend, obviously, and now we monitor the behavior of the ships all the time, and this trend is going obviously to intensify in the future. So in fact, more and more we need to be accustomed with the exploitation of this information. This is happening to some extent already, but I think this is going to be happening much better in the future when techniques will have evolved to a better stage than what we have right now. And combined with that is increased autonomy. This seems to be a trend. I don't know how fast this is going to happen, but definitely we see a trend for increased levels of autonomy to be adopted in the ships gradually. I'm not very optimistic that it's going to happen soon or will happen at all to a large extent, but nevertheless, I think that these are definitive trends that can be said, and of course we will see what will happen in the next 10 or 20 years. Now, concerning the seafarers, obviously the seafarers should be able to cope with all these problems, with all these new technologies. And of course, this leads to another, I assume, another question of how we should prepare the seafarers, but I assume that this will be asked later by somebody, so I don't want to get into that right now. What is most important is that we have seafarers that have the level to manage and also to some extent to understand these technologies. Right? This is very important. And I would generalize a little bit this discussion. It's not only the seafarers, it's also everybody else who is involved in the shipping or in the maritime industry. is the naval architects who are involved in ship design or in consultancy, and all the professionals who are actually supporting this industry. How all these people are going to adapt to the changing environment. This is not only the seafarers. That's important to remember that. So I assume that there will be another opportunity to focus on these matters later on, and I'll stop here.
Thank you, Kostas. Would anybody else from the panel like to contribute? Okay. Natasa. Digital transformation and innovative ship design will deliver smarter and autonomous ships. How will this major shift impact seafarers, especially in their hard skills advancement?
Thank you. So this is an interesting question because there is always a debate from the outset between hard and soft skills. So I think as an industry, we should start from the hard skills because many of those fuels have been carried as cargo already. So there is knowledge in the industry. Seafarers already have the skills and competencies to utilize some of them, transporting the new fuels, methanol, ammonia, and hydrogen as a cargo. So especially ammonia, I will take it as a case study, seen as one of the most promising alternative fuels as it has no carbon dioxide emissions. However, using it as a shipping fuel can create potential safety hazards, and we all know that toxicity is underscored on several occasions. Now, we do anticipate that decarbonization and digital transformation will mandate seafarers to get upskilled and reskilled in new operations. One and foremost that needs to happen is really appreciate the properties of the new fuels. So the physical properties, the way they are produced, how they are stored on board, how they're being transported, how can we trace the carbon from well to wake, how can we handle on board, what do we do in emergency situations. It all resides in process safety in most cases. So there is a gap there that the industry needs to fill and work towards in having not only the mentality, but really the hard skills in place for seafarers to be able and confident and have the knowledge, above all, to deal with all these situations in all these phases of operations. And also, so when we say hard skills also, because technology that is advancing very fast, and it is going to be key to decarbonization to reach net zero. So in that trajectory, we do anticipate that technology advancements will need hard skills training, not only to happen once, but at periodical intervals as well, in order to keep seafarers well-trained and skilled. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasa. And just to remind you, if you have any questions you would like to ask the panel, please just put your hand up.
May I ask something the audience?
Yeah.
May I ask something the audience?
Of course.
Yeah? Or George, would you like to say something? May I take? Okay, just to challenge you a little bit about skills, hard skills and soft skills. How many of you have a mobile phone? I'm sure everybody. Everyone. Okay. I'm sure how many of you do not have a mobile phone? I'm sure that nobody. Because actually we have linked our lives on a mobile phone. My question is, how many of you do you really know how to use it? Second, how many of you are you willing to spend some hours to sit in a classroom and be taught how to use it? Third question, if you learn how to fully use your mobile phone, how many of you will use those capabilities, those skills to communicate through your mobile phone? Why I'm saying that, David? I'm just saying that may I go on, may I take one more minute? Okay, so I'm just saying that I've heard so much things, and I may elaborate a little bit later on hard skilling, soft skilling, meta skilling, digitalization, and then we go to cyber skilling, and then all those skills. And the basic question is, who educates? What do we need those skills, and how those skills can be combined if I'm very hard skilled on the big universities, the very good universities in the United States, Harvard, usually I think that you know that it's an Ivy League university, it's the best, one of the best universities. So everyone graduating from Harvard is supposed to be very well hard skilled. I think that Bill Gates, David, said once that I will never employ someone from Harvard University for 3 reasons. First, because everyone from Harvard University believes that he knows everything, or she knows everything. It's from Harvard. Second, if rule 1 fails and do something wrong, then you cannot blame one from the Harvard University. So the guy from the Harvard always try to find someone else to blame. It's not my fault, it's his fault. Second. Third, if there is no one, then it's a system failure. So I'm just would like to challenge a little bit and provoke the conversation, and I'm sure that George would like to say something. So George, would you like to say something?
Well, I wanted to say something before your comments, but I want to say 2 things at least. So I will start from Angelo's comment on the mobile phone, and of course it may seem trivial, but and I will relate it to the shipping sector as well. But of course we need to know exactly how things work, and that's on a multi-level, right? I mean, we need to know the designer, the seafarer, the operator, the financial guys, etc. So we are overwhelmed. The shipping community is overwhelmed by information, okay? Overwhelmed by potential solutions. Some of them very well thought of. The majority, if I may say, not so. And if I have time, I will bring one example from discussions last week. So I fully agree with Angelos. But my original thought was a comment from Natasha on the issue of ammonia. Leaving personal preferences aside, and if you're an engineer, you have to leave all your personal preferences aside. Ammonia is, we have to be very careful in the definitions, okay? And that's where training comes in. Ammonia is a green fuel if it's produced, as you all know, from green hydrogen. So if it's not, then it's dirtier than HFO in terms of world-wide emissions. So what I'm saying, without wanting to delve further into this issue, is that we need to take a very holistic and broad approach in the education, and also start looking from very fundamental issues. As I said before, shipping is bound to change. From my part, I don't think that drastic changes are necessary to the extent that it is presented. I think there's a lot of improvements to be made by simply in many quotation marks, optimizing, first of all, measuring things, which we do not do all the time. So measuring, optimizing, making efficient ships, etc. But most of all, making sure that we go step by step and all the parties involved are properly trained. And the final thing, probably I'm covering some of your questions, but I mean, I think this is better to have a discussion than the Q&A session. A final thing is public perception. So we're talking about training. So everybody has to be trained, even the public. I will bring 2 examples. I want to bring 1 example, I'm going to bring 2. So, for example, we're talking about CO2 storage. And I do believe in onboard carbon capture and storage. But where are we going to store those vast CO2 amounts? And even if it's safe, is the public convinced that it's safe? Is the politicians, the whatever, so how much do we need to train them? There's another example on SO2 issue, but I think I will leave this later to allow somebody else to speak as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Natasha, can I come to you on that point around education?
Yes, on the public perception or on the education part?
The education, but also public perception, if you'd like to.
Okay, so on the education part, there have been several initiatives that are underway. Of course, we need to leave personal preference aside, and this is why, because the Maritime Just Transition Task Force, which comprises of the UN Global Compact, The ICS and the ITF, which are industry associations, together with Lloyd's Register, have embarked on a phase 1, which has been completed. These are numbers that many of you have come across in the past, I'm sure. They had estimated that 800,000 seafarers will need to be upskilled and reskilled by mid-2030 to be able to confidently deal and handle these new fuels, hydrogen-based fuels. In that respect, Maritime Just Transition Task Force Phase 2 is already in progress, and it has into the plans in engaging with partners and stakeholders within the industry. Again, it is led by industry associations, UN Global Compact, Lloyd's Register, but we have drawn from expertise from all across the maritime supply chain, and there have been some workshops taken place. So the ultimate goal of the Maritime Just Transition Task Force Phase 2 will be to deliver maritime training for upskilling and reskilling seafarers for methanol, ammonia, and hydrogen, and also have a practical training material to be rolled out in 2025 in Asia. The ultimate objective of this initiative would eventually be a submission at the HTW at the IMO in November 2024, with a vision of this becoming, in the near future, an IMO training model perhaps, or a syllabus for all training academies seafarers to be able to use. At a regional level, education also gains traction at this moment as we speak. And many of you, if some of you attended yesterday's HELMEPA conference, could have been in the position to hear about the Metavasi project, which is sponsored by Lloyd's Register Foundation. But in terms of education, it is a regional initiative looking at upskilling and reskilling not only seafarers, but also the workers, the maritime workers ashore. So linking the ports and the port authorities and the infrastructure into the discussion. So what we are seeing here is a context where everything is happening at an international level, at a regional level in Eastern Mediterranean, and we're very happy that Greece is part of this, and Cyprus. That is done through HELMEPA as well. And even at a company level, I would say, at an organization level, Lloyd's Register has a digital tool, Zero Carbon Fuel Monitor. It has been mentioned something on public perception. We do measure the readiness for the uptake of these fuels in terms of investment technology and community readiness and regulation. And there is another pillar that is going to be soon added into this. It is going to be all about people readiness. And we also have a Together in Safety project that is currently ongoing that captures and encapsulates all the industry expertise and experience in education, in finding the gaps, in having the skills ready and the competencies for seafarers to be able to safely deal with ammonia, hydrogen, and methanol when these become available and when there is safe to be deployed on board vessels.
Thank you, Natasha. We have a question from the floor. Yes, sir? I don't know if there is a roving microphone. If not, I can hear you and I will repeat the question.
We have two different numbers, and they are big numbers, and we want some clarity on how many seafarers will need to be trained for new fuels by 2030. We have 450,000, I think, from Mr. Papayos in his keynote, and we have 800,000 now, so if we have some clarity on this.
Can we have clarity on the number of seafarers that will be required to be trained in alternative fuels?
To be honest, I'd like not to disagree with Mr. Fafalios because I highly respect him. But in the study that the Maritime Just Transition Task Force Phase 1 has issued, there has been, the number is 800,000 seafarers by mid-2030. I think Mr. Fafalios said by 2030, so.
Can I? Please. Yeah. I just want to clarify that the study actually produced three numbers. One of the numbers was 800,000, the other one was 450, and the other one was 250. So being an engineer, I took the middle, number because of my experience in the industry. So, of course, Natasha is correct, and I am correct. In fact, the study has produced 3 figures. So it's confusing, I know, but there are different terms of reference linked to each of the numbers. So I think that if you actually read the study, you will see that there are different levels of, as Natasha says much more eloquently than me, upskilling and reskilling. Thank you.
Sorry, just a very quick comment. Even if the number was 100,000, it again would be a critical number. Without seafarers, we don't have shipping. This has been pinpointed, stressed too many times at several conferences and events. We all know it. So it's the quality of the training to be produced rather than the numbers alone. And I do appreciate that 800,000 is an alarming figure. It's a bit awkward for me to state it when I'm here addressing yourselves. But any numbers will need to be tackled with. Yes.
Thank you, Natasha. Another question?
So I would like to ask another question. Oh, sorry. I'm not very fond of it, but I'll try to do it. I mean, it's my first time. But is this number about active seafarers or the seafarers that will come into the future? I mean, from these marine academies? Because we also need to think about the marine academies and the seafarers that will go on the market soon. So is this number about only active seafarers?
I think it includes both active and non-active seafarers because, okay, until 2030, 2040, we will have additional young seafarers joining. And there is also, so it covers the broader range of seafarers.
Okay, and another question is about the mobile phone. So say that the seafarers
In fact, we're going to be moving the discussion into that area quite shortly. So if I may, can I hold on to that thought? Thank you very much. Kostas.
No, just a comment, because I noticed this interest for numbers. And I think, with all due respect, this is the wrong focus here. When we're talking about numbers of this magnitude, all right, what matters is actually the order of magnitude. It's not the exact number. So if it was, let's say, 10,000, yes, that would make a difference. If it is 500,000 or 800,000, who can say what's the exact number? But we get the message, all right? We know what we are talking about. Okay, so please don't focus too much on these numbers, which are subjective anyway.
Thank you. We've heard a fair amount. Angelos was talking about different forms of training with the mobile phone, hard, soft, and meta training. Natasha talking about education for alternative fuels and the numbers of people that we need to train. I have a question for Kostas to start with. There are, in my view, several key challenges that we're going to have for our future generations of seafarers. First of all, they are absolutely going to have to handle and manage the alternative fuels that the ships are going to be running on. Our ships are going to be producing far more data points in order to give us the ability to measure the success that we have in the future, and because the technology allows us to produce that big data. And thirdly, we will need to manage how we introduce our training and education so that it is most accessible to Generation Alpha, who will be entering the workforce over the next couple of decades. So Kostas, how do you feel education can support these 3 areas for the next generation of seafarers?
Yes, this is an important question, and as I said also in my first talk, I think the discussion is actually, the question addresses a wider number of people. I mean, it's not only the seafarers, it's also everybody else in the business, right? And I will start with the softer skills, and I think that we need to make teaching a little bit more motivating for the students. Maybe also for the teachers, right? Because the teachers also need motivation. And for a start, I would say that there is no real substitute for a good teacher, all right? So let's not put that to the side, thinking that, okay, we moved into the digitalization era, and we have many aids to assist, for teaching. We have learning management systems. We have smart boards, etc. But of course, a good teacher is indispensable in this. All right, let's not forget that. Now, digital skills is obviously a priority that all the people now in the academies should be somehow trained. And maybe retrain those who are actually out of the academies and now are on a career, maybe in an early stage of seafaring career. Another important priority that I will see here is to teach sustainability. I mean, sustainability encapsulates many, many things, but is a priority for the planet. And it's important that we implement somehow that in our daily business. So in fact, under the umbrella of sustainability, we can put technologies, we can put whatever is relevant to the specific area that we are learning, okay? Of course, there needs quite a lot of effort from the teachers to design these courses, okay? Because these courses are not just taken out of the shelf and just go to the classroom and give it, all right? So we have to think how we make it relevant and also attractive and possible to teach, because that's another area. Then I think it's very important that we implement partnerships between institutions, academic institutions, and the industry. That's very important because it's very easy for the academic institution to lag behind whatever is happening to the industry. On the other hand, what is happening in the academia sometimes is not known to the industry. It's very important that this, we move to the new era of education and training through partnerships between these two poles of the business. Okay? So I have already mentioned a few priorities. I think management skills is also very important. Management skills, to cultivate management skills, because at the end of the day, in a technological world, people have to be good managers. Right? Those who are in charge have to be good managers. Right? They're not so much developers, or they don't need to understand every detail, although they need to understand some principles. Okay, that's very important. But they should be able to take right decisions, to assimilate the information that they receive, and make the right choices. All right, especially for ships, which we know how critical it can be in certain environments. Okay? So I think somehow we need to cultivate the management skills and communication, obviously. Communication is extremely important. Now we have crews from different countries and very different and sometimes doubtful backgrounds. But we need to upgrade also in terms of communication to make sure that we have a good way to exchange information reliably. So I will stop here. I could probably mention a few more, but maybe someone would like to ask more, so I can give more.
Thank you. George?
Yes, I don't know if somebody from the audience wants to say something before I have 2 comments. So I guess I can have my 2 comments as well. So first of all, I fully agree with almost that Kostas, Professor Spyros said. It's very well thought of. And I want to focus on 2 things. First of all, and I fully agree, of course, numbers are not important, because once you make a curriculum for 1 person, then you can translate it to 100 persons, etc. But it's a question about the trainers. Okay, numbers are important on the availability of trainers. And I think this is very important. And also, as Kostas mentioned, we need to make the offering attractive to the new generation. And one of the offerings is the offering of the teacher. We always talk about training, but it's not only the trainees, it's also the trainer. So that's very important. And I will jump from this comment into the second comment that also Kostas mentioned about synergies. I think is extremely crucial, and now is the time to you know, they always say the sum is how they say this, I mean, 1 and 1 is 3, etc. All these things, they actually make sense. Also, I just make a small personal comment. I come from both worlds. I worked for many years in low TRL R&D, and now I'm applying this into a more a higher TRL, more industrial environment. And I think the only way to do it is not only is, of course, collaboration of academia, research, and industry, but also all the other factors. It's a multifaceted problem. Environment, innovation, what else? Everything has to come together. Legal issues, the public perception I mentioned before. So collaboration is the key. That doesn't preclude companies to, they don't have to give out all the own information, etc. IP, probably IP regulations that have to be reformed as well. But collaboration is the key, and educating the trainers before they educate the trainees. Thank you.
Thank you, George. And Angelos, can I come to you on the same?
Sorry.
And Angelos, can I come to you on the same question?
Yes, I can say that I do not fully agree with both George and Kostas. First of all, because I think that it's a society of trainees and not for the trainers. And second, because I cannot find in any place 800,000 seafarers. I don't know if you know, but except the ranks, the average salary of seafarer is about $1,300 times 6 months for a contract. I think that this is why in Greece we have less than 5,000 listed in the fund. 12,000 in general, out yachts, out passenger shipping. So first of all, the basic question, in my opinion, is where will we find these 800,000 seafarers to train them as our trainers? The second consideration of mine is that in order to find seafarers, most of the shipping companies go to Philippines, India, Indonesia, Ukraine, Russia, with an average cost of living of some 100 euros, I don't know. So we pay them, and then we have to reskill them, de-skill them, meta-skill them for 1,300 times 6 months. So it's very nice, in my opinion, discussing all those issues, but I have to put a little bit consideration on the seafaring industry. Who will be the subject of education and how willing the subject is to be trained? And for what? For every 5 months, 6 months, we keep reskill them. A final thing. I'm sure that everybody knows that ISM is mandatory for shipping. You know that. Okay. I have to say that ISM forbids soft skilling. And you say, no, it's not forbidden. Okay, ISM, by its very creation, belongs to a way of management where actually you have to be trained and drilled, and someone will produce blueprints, and then you have to be trained to apply them. And then we have to start thinking, okay, we need some soft skills. What soft skills? The O'Keefe's competency model includes 6 soft skills. I'm sure that Kostas referred to those soft skills. And they say the first soft skill is team working. Okay, how do we measure team working? They do not say. They say we will evaluate, assess by an assessor, but we do not know how to assess team working really. The second, they say, is communication skills. The third is result focus. The fourth is situation analysis, decision making, and leadership. The funny thing about soft skilling is that the seafarer that enters our vessel actually has to be extremely trained and drilled on doing exercises, emergencies, how to take out, unload the vessel. And then we have to ask the guys to be soft-skilled. Have you ever thought or considered if we make the leadership soft skill high, if the leadership soft skill will diminish communication skilling in the shore industry? Forget about the sea industry. So first is hard skilling, second is soft skilling, and then we came with digitalization. And I keep saying that it's very nice listening about digitalization, but for whom? For the ship owner, for the shipping business. We went on board for many, many times trying to persuade, to convince the seafarers that a camera on board on the bridge is not harmful. So everybody, they say with, and many companies, they say, I have on my videotape that the master, the chief officer, uses his mobile phone. And I keep calling him and say, leave your mobile phone down. Real time. And then we have to go and convince the seafarers that by having cameras on board, it's not so harmful. And then we take the data out, and we have plenty of data. And as we're working heavily on big data, the funny thing is that we compile them with psychometrics, and we have data and data, but no one, if is anyone from the shipping industry, I'm sure that you know that we take so tons of data, bits, that we cannot bite them. So it's three basic things. It's hard skilling, okay, where are we, where we want to go. It's soft skilling, who said that, and how everybody is manipulated through the OCIMF and now DBMS, dry DBMS, about soft skilling. And then it's digitalization. Everything is going back to the office, and I'm sure that no more than 20% of this information is useful. And out of 5 big shipping companies in Greece, we keep looking at the data, and they say, please help. Can you please prepare the reports? Because, okay, we have thousands of data. So I would like again to press one question. Yes, okay, we have to think and do new things on how to make those guys work for us better. It's certain. But first of all, please note, we do not have seafarers. I don't know if we have, but I may ask Mr. Fafalio, do you have so many seafarers that in your company, can you go and choose? Or sometimes are we going and beg for seafarers? So those that are begged to embark, because the good ones actually are few, or are not the ranks, I mean the lower ranks. Are we going to take them inside and say, look here, all of us here will train you. And then you have to re-skilled and take care of the cameras and the sensors that we put in everything. So my final point, and I'm sorry for taking so much time, David, is that I think that, first of all, we have to think for the guys in the sea. The second is that I don't feel that we lack of trainers. I think that many trainers. I think that we need to put some priorities. And of course, safety, environment, and all those things are very good. I think that we have to make efficient solutions. And if we have time, I can present to you some results. We take 100 ships, 6 years, every single measurement, to see how much psychometrics, you know what is psychometrics for everyone, counts as against the safety incidents. So there are considerations. My basic consideration is that we have to be more simple. I feel sometimes that it's like one ship owner said that once, it's like a donkey, that we keep putting burdens on the donkey. This is shipping. We keep putting regulations, and then we justify those regulations by saying it's for the good. Okay, but finally, I'm sure that the donkey will collapse. So I think that we have to re-examine, reschedule all those things that we're doing. A little bit provocative, but I'm sure that somebody will answer.
Thank you very much. Natasa, can I come to you on that point?
Okay, there have been several points and interesting standpoints being expressed. I'd like to shift the discussion a bit, because we need to take pride in what shipping does and the initiatives that are out there. It is not an easy task. Education is not an easy task at all. Reskilling, upskilling is not an easy task at all. First of all, regarding who are we going to train? Are we going to train the seafarers? No, we're not going to train the seafarers. The IMO, which is an international body, has in its plans to have a syllabus, a train-the-trainer course, an instructor handbook, which is going to be a deliverable, a clear deliverable from the Maritime Just Transition Task Force Phase 2 training project. So this aspect has been addressed for the first time, because emphasis and attention has been put not only on the seafarers, so whoever receives the training, but also to the people that deliver it. They all need to appreciate the new fuels, their characteristics, as I said before, their production, their storage, the whole supply chain from well to wake, and the operational features on board. The first one is that. Secondly, we need to consider a holistic context when we talk about training. It is a massive area, we do understand it. We have talked about community social awareness campaigns that are being delivered within the Metavasi project and education. And also with regards to steps and initiatives, yes, it's a very wide area. Everybody, we talked about partnerships. There are industry partnerships, partnerships with academia, with institutions like the Maersk McKinney Moller Center. On the 4th of June, here at the stand, we had the first AIP for an ammonia carrier. So there are several initiatives out there, several training programs that in the end, they will all come together to address the hard skills, the soft skills, and the digital transformation skills required. And an end point, because I don't want to take much of your time, when we say soft skills, we need a rebranding in what do we mean by that. When we say soft skills, it's not all about communication skills in general. It's about self-awareness, accountability on board, because shipping is changing. We have vast volume of data. Yes, we need to manage this. We need to manage, first and foremost, the safety aspects of what is coming with the new fuels. And all of these are facets of the same discussion under the tag education.
Thank you, Natasha. Question from the floor.
I think we are getting a little bit confused here. For both. About soft skills. Soft skills are already defined for our industry. And the document who started this, O'Keefe and Itertanko, is this, what the gentleman said, with the 6 domains, which is not compulsory. You can have different ways of categorizing things. But soft skills is about behavior. It's irrelevant to the hard skills. You may have hard skills, but you need also soft skills. Competence is hard competence and soft competence. You must have both. Hard is what you teach us in school. This is the knowledge. And the service experience. This is hard competence. Soft competence is behavior. How I apply what I know in a team or on my own is behavior. When we speak about training in soft skills, we have to manage our expectations. You don't expect that by training me in leadership, I will become Alexander the Great. No. It is about increasing the awareness of our people to understand that soft skills is an ingredient in the competence that will help them apply their knowledge in a team in a more effective and efficient way. This is just increasing the awareness. We will not make them better leaders or better team members because this is in the genes. But still, we have to educate our people in soft skills. And this is irrelevant to all this discussion. Soft skills is a must. And this is irrelevant to the new fuels, the old fuels, and whatever. Now, second, don't forget that all these challenges that we discuss about have been quoted at the time that I started in this business. It was the same. Lack of resources, no human, where we'll find the semen, and blah, blah, blah. Shipping has been successful, and we have managed all these changes and all these challenges successfully till now. And this is the history. There was always a gap between university and what is applied in the field. We were educated in boilers, and on ships we had diesel engines. It will be the same with carbon capture. In 2 years, we will have to manage carbon capture systems on board. In university, they don't know about the term, Mr. Spiro. So this is always a gap. And this gap was managed. How was managed? By us. We in the field, we, the managers, have found ways.
What is the question, actually?
There is no question. I'm trying to say, I don't have a question. I just want to clarify. Don't get confused about soft skills and hard skills. It's something different. Both of them are needed for performance, one thing. And the second is that I think we are giving too much emphasis in something that we have already managed. And we will manage again. I don't have any doubt that we will be in a position to manage the new fuels and the fancy fuels and whatever fuels.
Thank you very much. Angelos.
Yes, okay. I think that, yes, there is a little bit of confusion, but I don't know, I'm not sure on the site. First of all, let me say that hard skills and soft skills are closely linked. Otherwise, they will not be used simultaneously. Second, I may say that soft skills, as at least are presented by every shipping organization, has certain non-measurement issues. So it's very nice saying that I'm assessing soft skills, but if I ask you, do you know any measurement method of the leadership? But if you are, I don't know, are you in the shipping, are you in the tanker business? Okay, so when the assessor, the evaluator, the inspector, the vetting inspector, okay, so thank you very much. If quality, okay, so if quality is not measured, it's like what Plato said, that beauty is not measured. If beauty and quality is not measured, however, I may argue that it is measured, because Coca-Cola measures soft skills. However, sometimes we don't want to measure some elements because we may use them politically. And what we keep arguing is that if, for example, I'm asking a very big company and I'm sending an inspector to measure the soft skills in a huge company and a small tanker company, I may say that maybe the result is different based on who you judge and not how you judge. And I can give you some examples on that if you want after the thing. So, in my opinion, soft skills and hard skills are closely linked. You cannot decompose them. Okay, I don't want to be on a discussion. Okay, I'm just saying, I'm just presenting my opinion. I'm sure that you are presenting your opinion. So, just to say my opinion then, I can say that yes, there is a confusion on soft skill side. I'm sure that if we can go to IMO or KIMF, we may say some things on that, especially how we measure soft skills and for whom we measure soft skills and who measures those soft skills and if they need it. What I'm saying is that I don't know if as measured may give something. As measured, okay? That's regarding soft and hard. I'm sure that Kostas would like to answer something on the other side, or to comment, not answer, because I don't feel that.
Can I jump into the discussion? I think that actually the target is not whether we're going to have hard or soft. we need to have competent people. So you mentioned as you like what we need, but actually we need competent people, and this is what we need on board the ships and what we need here in the offices. And to have competent people, we need education. This is clear, because nobody came in the world with the knowledge that has to have in the behavior and either in the knowledge. So from the beginning of the discussion, I had in my mind something regarding this public perception and regarding the institutions. Let's forget a little bit for the seafarers. And we have two professors here. It's Professor Spyrou and Professor Pantouvakis from the most significant universities of Greece, Technical University and the commercial side from the University of Piraeus. And the public perception is that when you are in a place where an industry is thriving, for instance, if you are in Paris where fashion is probably the avant-garde, you are expecting also that the fashion school in Paris will have an advantage. Now, this kind of advantage here in Greece, we have this big advantage of having this industry in shipping. Do you see as professors this advantage in your work? Do you see that the public perception, maybe now it is not like having Harvard, but in the future, you will have also this benefit of being in a country where the shipping industry is very strong, and do you see this advantage in your days, and what you are expecting actually to use this advantage for the people that will be the future executives in the Greek shipping industry?
Thank you, Panos. Can I come to Kostas on that?
Yes, David, may I actually respond for a few seconds to the point raised by the discussion, and then I will come to that. Just, I would rather agree, I think, with some of the points raised by the discussor earlier, and I would ascribe to that. I would call it optimistic view of the industry. I like very much this example of the change from boilers and steam and from steam to diesel. And our industry has shown excellent adaptability to that. We don't think we had a real shortage of skills. And I want to believe that the same is going to happen also with these new technologies that we're talking about. And another optimistic view is that probably we are experiencing a transition of the whole industry from low-tech industry, from dirty industry, as some people call it, to something that is higher level. And for myself, who has been in this business for some time, I can see this change. I mean, the modern ships are much better than what they were. They are safer, they are more efficient, jobs are more clean. If you go to Far East shipyards, they are very nice environments to work. Also, some European shipyards are very nice environments to work. So, in fact, we are seeing a transition towards something that is higher level. And this actually may make the industry more attractive for younger people to come and work for this industry, right? Because the salaries, generally speaking, are quite good, but it's all the rest. I mean, the social aspect that is creating problems, and the risks, of course. So I think that the technological upgrading that we are experiencing right now, and these huge changes that we see happening, actually will work for the good of our industry. This is my prediction, and in this respect, I would think that this may give some sort of solution to the shortage of people who do not really want to come to work in this industry. Now, coming to the question from Mr. Kourkoundis, I think he touched on a topic that is our weakness here in Greece, right? Because we don't really exploit this industry that we have next to us so much. And although I talked earlier about partnerships between academic institutions and the industry, in fact, we're not doing that in this country. And I've heard many people talking about it, but whenever somebody tried to do something in that direction, very rarely he had some success. Okay, we can collaborate on some project, all right? We have some European funding, and we are, from universities, we're desperate to find some partners from the industry, so we come, we knock the door of certain companies, come and join us for this project, a nice funding, okay. Then the project finished, and nothing goes further than that, okay? What I mean by that is that we need to have some more stable basis for collaboration. These things are happening in other countries. Look what is happening in Norway. I was asked recently to assess the research that is done in Norway in the maritime sector, and I can see actually how much they depend on joint efforts between academia, between institutions that are in between academia and the industry, which we don't have here, or very little actually. Some efforts are happening, but not significant. So we need to build, if we're going to have something substantial in terms of using the forces from the academia and in the industry in order to advance our technical basis and also the education that we provide to people, I think it's essential to build more stable, more concrete structures somehow. When I say structures, I don't mean buildings. I mean to have certain systems and facilities that can facilitate and can allow this kind of collaboration. As I said, for the maritime, consider the maritime, okay? How important is maritime for Greece, okay? Everybody understands that. It's the first business together with tourism. Okay. We have technical university, it was mentioned by Mr. Kourkoudis. Our university is probably one of the, our graduates are top of the list normally for most companies, not only in this country, but also internationally, when it comes to hiring somebody, a young person, a young graduate for the maritime sector. Okay? They're very highly regarded. Okay? We have good knowledge backgrounds with good professors, but how is that materialized when it comes to doing something with the industry? We don't have the structure, we don't have the, for example, the Norwegians, they have SINDEF. You know SINDEF? They have SINDEF Ocean, particular for our field, okay? They have an institution where the university collaborates with the industry in a formal manner. The professors can have double appointment in the university and in SINDEF, so they can actually be aware of what's going on, what are the needs of the industry, but at the same time, they do not abolish their academic identity, okay? So we need to create structures that can facilitate this exchange of information and to build on that.
Thank you, Kostas.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have another question from the floor at the back.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Konstantinos Kostinidis. Currently, I'm a postgraduate student of University of Piraeus, and I'm an ex-chief officer holding Captain Class A certificate. I would like to address my question to Mr. Dimitris Fafalios regarding the public consultation, which has to do with the merchant marine academies and the qualification level that there is a talk since last December, as I remember, after Evgenidis Foundation issued their holistic approach of maritime education paper regarding the qualification, if it should be number 5, level 5, or it should be higher or lower. I would like to have your comment about it, since we are talking about soft skills, hard skills, meta skills and upgrading and upskilling our people, but I don't find this, I don't find it, for the Greek officers at least, as I'm a Greek officer also, I don't find it fair, because we're talking about that we need people, and without people we don't have shipping, but where's our people? Thank you. And I'm really sorry for that.
Thank you very much. And I have to admit that although I get involved with a lot of issues at the Union of Greek Ship Owners, and I know about what you're talking about approximately, I do not have the detailed knowledge to answer your question. There has been a constant effort by the Union of Ship Owners with our ministry to upgrade maritime education in our country, because we really believe that the merchant marine academies and the young graduates of the merchant marine academies and of course also the ongoing training, taking the officers through to the highest level is of vital importance. But our biggest problems lie in the fact that the difference between wishes and implementation are often very, very different. So I don't have the specific knowledge to answer your question. I have to be very frank about that. But if you'd like, we'll meet afterwards and I can take it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as we begin to draw this session to a close, I'd like to pose a question to Natasa. Is global education a dream for shipping? Big question.
I'm a positive person. I think, no, it's not a dream for shipping. But it needs to happen at several levels and in clusters, because as decarbonization cannot happen overnight, it cannot happen only at one speed. We have the first movers, we have the backbone of shipping industry. There have been project initiatives, collaborations, partnerships addressing those facets at several levels. Similarly, I believe education is an area, a subject that will need to be addressed at several levels, as I said before. And because the panel's title is Education and Technology, so technology is here, we cannot avoid it. Technological advancements are here, are going to be more. So hard skills, soft skills, meta skills, whatever we need to call them, will need to be adjusted to what is needed to decarbonize, what is needed to modernize shipping. And in this respect, we will be seeing limited crew access, autonomy on vessels. We're going to see digital and analytical skills being required more than ever nowadays. So in that respect, global education, I truly believe we are going to get there in the end. It will take time because the IMO route and channel for regulatory adoption and then by the member states takes some time. But in the meantime, this will also give feedback and knowledge and expertise back to the stakeholders of the maritime supply chain and the ecosystem to give birth to more projects and more partnerships like the Metavasi, like the partnerships we see in shipping, to mature the environment, mature what is needed, mature the syllabus, mature the maritime academies, what is offered out there, and in the end have something at a global level mandated and enforced by the IMO as an IMO model course. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasa. And George?
Yeah, okay, I'll start from one comment of Natasha about the levels. I think we're focusing too much here, and also I will also like to point out a comment from the gentleman on the boilers, diesel engine issue, and the carbon capture. So the levels is important. We're focusing here, for example, in TUA, in say higher level education, but we need to, first of all, global education is not a dream. I think it will be a reality and it's a necessity. It has to be multi-level, as I said before. So, and also it has to be, I mean, we're talking about, say, personalized medicine. We have the tools, and we're talking about digitalization. Digitalization does not apply only to data handling. It also applies to the flexibility of the courses offered, to things like sandwich courses, to things like joint master's degrees, to training schools, to training sessions, etc. So different levels, customization using digital tools and new platforms, etc., and close collaboration. So, and coming to finish with a comment about the disparity between university education and the new technologies that will appear. I mean, students that are entering university this year, 2025, are going to be in the workforce towards the end of the century, right? I mean, can anybody in the audience have an idea of what are going to be the skills required? Not the skills, but the technology, say, a palette in 2080. Can we train the students for 2080 or the seafarers for 2080? No, but we can give them basic skills, basic hard skills, basic soft skills, and make sure that the constant collaboration between the universities and the whatever industry that is.
Thank you very much, George. And just to wrap up then before we close this session, I would like to make a personal point. We are concerned about where these hundreds of thousands of seafarers are going to come from. It is worth remembering that 98% of our seafarers come from only approximately 50% of the global population. One obvious source for alleviating the shortfall in our seafarers is encouraging women into our industry. And that needs to be done at very much grassroots level, starting off very early within the education system to make a career in maritime a viable and attractive career for everybody in the population, not just men. I'd like to thank the panelists for their contributions today and for their perspectives and sharing their experiences. And thank you very much all for your attention as members of the audience. Thank you.
I would like also to thank David Taylor for his contribution. And we're going to have a 30 minutes break, coffee break, and we will be back here at 1 o'clock. Thank you. It is the time to have the second panel, which is regarding the practical approach of training and education on board. For this panel, the moderator is Haris Giadzikis, who is next to me, technical manager of Arcadia Ship Management, who will present also the panelists here.
Thank you, Panos. We heard a lot on the first panel discussion about education and training. I was a bit disappointed. There are so many trainees. There are not enough trainers. So we have to find another solution to train our seafarers. I don't know how easy will that be. This panel will discuss 4 items, really: the SIRE 2.0 vetting regime, how do the new technologies will assist the training, and how will they overcome the problem of service experience, how artificial intelligence is going to be used as a tool, or is it also a threat, as we hear in our everyday life about the rest industries? And computer-based training, what can we do about that? I will ask the panelists to present themselves, starting with Andreas.
Good afternoon. I wish I could say it's fantastic to have a full forum of people and on.
We're getting there.
But we're getting there. So I think we can be very, yes, so we can be very sure that irrespective of that, we'll have a very good discussion. My name is Andreas Hajipetru. I'm the Managing Director of Columbia Ship Management in Cyprus. And I'm also on a group level group commercial officer. In our group, we manage about 400 ships, and we deal with obviously many nationalities of seafarers and clients around the world. So I hope I can contribute to the panel with my experience on how we manage the ships and how we tackle the crewing subject. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon from my side also. My name is Konstantinos Sagas. My background is from the Greek War Navy. I used to be an officer of the Greek War Navy. I retired in 2018, and since then I'm the training manager in the Prokopiou Group. So we are also managing a lot of vessels from different segments of the industry. So hopefully we will be able to give you some of the insights of how we manage things and how we see the industry going on training issues. Thank you.
Καλησπέρα. My name is Dimitris Fokas. My background is naval architect. I was with the Greek administration for many years. I joined Angelikousis Group 13 years ago as training manager, and I'm also the chairman of Intertanko Human Element and Shipping Committee. Thank you.
Καλησπέρα σας. My name is Takis Koutris. I work for Oksana Shipping. We manage tankers and bulkers.
Good afternoon. My name is Anastasios Kartsimadakis. I'm representing Tsakos Group of companies. I'm the group vetting manager responsible for the vetting activities of a fleet of about 100 vessels. And I'm coming from Chios. Thank you for the kind invitation to Mark Tenba and Newsfront Naftiliaki. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We heard a lot about hard skills and soft skills from Mr. Koutris and the panelists. We heard a lot about leadership as well, and Alexander the Great. What I remember is, and I keep remembering it every time, and I can tell you, is that a leader is someone who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. So you cannot become a leader if you don't do all these three things at the same time. But let us start our discussion. You can ask questions while we are discussing. Just raise your hand and a microphone will come, a lady with a microphone or a gentleman will come next to you and you can ask your questions. Just as a warm-up, I will ask each panelist to reply at the first question. What do you consider to be the 2-3 most important issues that the industry faces as far as training and education on board is concerned? Andrea, if you want to start.
Yes, sure. I think the industry obviously is, there was a comment earlier by someone who said, how many people do you actually choose from when you select people to go on board your ship? And the selection we have is typically not very wide. So I think training the people on the job also becomes a very important element because with the fleet expansion, typically we have a lot of people that they don't go back to the same ship. So the retention rate is very significant and very, very critical. How do we train them? It's training on the job as much as possible. So for me, this is very important. And how do we make sure that we prepare them correctly through the training criteria each one of us has as a company? The training centers around the world are improving, but these training standards are not necessarily uniform, and they are not necessarily up to the high standards across the board. So also the standards of the training centers are critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Konstantine?
Okay, so as far as this is concerned, I want to take this, I agree with what Andrea said, but I also want to take this a little bit more to the practical side of things. So I think there are two basic issues that we're facing as far as training on board. The first issue that we're facing, and I think it's a universal thing, all the maritime companies are facing this issue. I challenge you, if you go and check a little bit your training matrices that you have on board your companies, you will see there are different types of training in there, but something that we forget to check is how much time do these trainings require on board in order to be conducted, in order to be performed? So if you check a little bit of this, I've done a little bit of research on this in some of the training matrices from friends that I took, we have in the industry, and I see that per average, we are telling people on board to conduct training something like 20 to 25 hours per week. So although this is something that we would like to have, we do realize if we let people have 20, 25 hours per week training, this means more than 1 hour per day. All the people that are managing vessels, no matter what kind of vessels they are, they understand this is not feasible. So this is one thing we need to consider. Now, why this is happening is because we have training requirements for many, many sources. From the industry, from ourselves, from the incidents that we have, from the industry, from the charterers, from the flags, from the port states, from many sources. But this is one of the big problems. We are telling people to conduct a lot of trainings, and there's not enough time for them to actually perform those trainings. And there's a big problem with this because it's as if we tell them to do it, and it's as if we're asking them to just report back that they've done it, not so much on the quality side. And the second thing is, the second problem is the quality of the training. Quality of the training because people that are conducting training on board, basically they're not trainers. They do have the trainer courses, they pass the trainer courses, they have some knowledge, but for the most part they're mariners. So for this, in order to succeed, the company needs to provide support material. So it's not enough to say, I've sent you the circular, based on the circular, conduct a training session on board. It's not enough. We need to be able to identify, to clear for them learning objectives, topics, learning activities, and of course some of the, and of course material, supporting material. So I think these are the basic two issues that we're facing. Thank you.
Konstantine, one question. You mentioned 20 to 24 hours per week?
Per week. Excuse me, per month.
Per month, okay.
Per month,
okay.
Sorry. That's per month.
Okay, thank you. Dimitri?
Yes, thank you. Training either ashore or on board has to do with the values of each company. If the company goes for compliance only, it's a different thing. If the company goes for competence, then again it's a different thing. So the starting point is always what the company wants. Tools are there for both options. I would like here to refer to, particularly for the onboard training, Intertanko has carried out a survey, which was published very recently, on living and working conditions on board vessels. To our surprise, together with internet access, the second or same rate with internet access was mentoring on board, which means that the seafarers told us that they need more mentoring. This is something very important. This has to do with their well-being and their welfare were the living and working conditions. So we need to listen to that request and try to find ways to improve the way that we train our seafarers and officers on board. We need to improve that part. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am almost covered by the previous speakers, but if I could just classify what has been said. First, I would say that challenge for us, training on board or ashore also, is the language and the cultural barrier, because all the training material is mostly in English, but our crew are not from Oxford University, and this is something that we have to manage. Then I have a category, what I call distraction factors, which has to do with fatigue, the limited human resources on board, which means fatigue and the lack of spare time for the attendees, lack of competence and fatigue for the mentors, for the facilitators of the training. This is an issue. Then distraction factor is also the weather conditions. The ship is pitching and rolling, is not something stable. So it means that short voyages, short stay in ports, all these factors are challenges for training. And last factor, category, let's say, is the scope of training. We have a fast changing regulatory regime, which means that we have to chase after all these new rules coming. I think this is the three factors.
Yes, thank you. I think, first of all, that we should consider the training as a proactive tool rather than a reactive approach. It's very important, the trainer's competence, because the fact that you know a subject does not mean that you can train people on this subject. I fully agree that training on the field is very important, but at the same time it's challenging, especially on vessels that have parallel activities all the times. And something that I recognize as very useful is the debriefing, the post-training session, the feedback that we are receiving from trainees. It's extremely important, because if we do not understand the expectations of our people before and after, we cannot improve, and we cannot pass a proper message to them.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any question from the floor regarding this issue? Okay, next one is remote training was developed and used a lot during COVID. Remote training is also part of the original ongoing STCW review by IMO. What is your experience with the use of remote training compared to traditional classroom, and how can we best use it? Andrea?
Thank you. Just a remark about the previous question. I think perhaps I have not explained myself correctly, but I think the issue we all have is, before you move to training, to have the right people on board the ships. So the recruitment is clearly a very big area, which is an industry-wide challenge, and then we move to training. I just wanted to make this remark. Now, in terms of the question, I think COVID has helped all of us, also in the office, to understand that there is a way of communicating and doing our job also via electronic means and so on. The improved connectivity on board the ship as well is helping us to collaborate more closely together with the seafarers. And specifically about the training, we have seen a lot of online material in the past, which has now been developed into online trainings. And we, as a company, we have teamed up with Adobe, and we provide our seafarers with a training platform which is electronic, so people can log in on their own account, build up their profile, and they follow all the company-specific trainings which are required. We find this efficient. It's more economic, obviously, but if you have a new seafarer joining your organization that has never really worked before on your management system, you really prefer to have classroom training as well, because this brings the people closer together, and then you have the chance to help them adopt the system better. What's also important is the onboard trainers, when specifically you take over a ship with new crew completely for different reasons, it's always good to have an office trainer to go on board the ship, spend 1, 2, 3 weeks as needed, so that to train the people on board the ship. Thank you. So in short, both training classroom and electronic is necessary.
Thank you. Konstantinos?
So, well, I think everyone would agree about the thing with COVID that pushed us a little bit in the direction of going a little bit more virtual with the vessels. So virtual live training is now something that we need to look very seriously on. We have, and the funny thing is, when we first started doing this, because of COVID, our first thoughts was, look, maybe the crew members, maybe they wouldn't be very happy about this because we take too much time from their own time on board, and we let them do more things, and it's real time, so they cannot do it on their own, as with the asynchronous trainings. But the thing, though, is that the feedback that we got when we started doing this was that the people, they wanted to do this. So we're pushing on this. And by the way, next week, after Posidonia, we're running our 2-week, we do this every quarter in our group, in Procopio Group. We do we call it remote training initiative. So we give them all the vessels a time slot within those 2 weeks, anytime they want. And we give them a range of topics, 40, 50 different topics, mostly soft skills related or safety related. And we tell them, tell us when do you want to go online and to conduct this kind of training. So in the beginning, we thought that it wouldn't work, that they wouldn't like it, but it looks like that they like it a lot. So this is something that we need to take into account. And COVID pushed us into this. And also, learning management systems, as addresses, is another important factor. Now we have the technology and with the connectivity to take advantage of these kind of technologies. I think that in the future, what we need to, obviously we need to look more forward into learning management systems, but also in the asynchronous trainings that we do, the e-learning courses. So far, our generation was used to go inside the PC screen and interact with the computer. Now I see that the younger generations, they do it a lot through their cell phones and their tablets. So we need to adjust a little bit to that. So, and of course the quality of the people, of the trainers on board is very, very important. So, but, so it's exactly like what he said. Both, we need both in-class training and both remote training. And the remote training, especially if it's on a real-time basis as a virtual training, so it like of simulates a little bit more the class training. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri.
Thank you. Yes, remote training is here and will stay for sure. Our experience is that we are using cloud options for the simulators. Technology has developed a lot. There are engine simulators, cargo simulators, bridge simulators via cloud. There are remote courses, synchronous, asynchronous, whatever. Again, the risk there is the quality of this training and what each company decides to do and how it delivers its courses. It can be easily tick, you can easily tick a box, compliance, done, finished, and we have all those courses. There is no standard today for remote training. So if you see a certificate of an engineer who has attended an engine room simulator course, which is a requirement by SIRE or ICE, whatever, you have no idea how many participants were there, if it was via cloud or not, nothing. You have no idea, you just see a certificate. And there is no standard there. So as Intertanko, we identified that gap and we're trying to submit to IMO a document to develop a standard for remote trainings. Such standard does not exist. You see a certificate. It can be 100 people participating in that course or 5. You have no idea. So how can a company measure the effectiveness of this remote training? The easy way is just to accept the certificate. The hard way is to dig and see what is behind every certificate. That's the real risk out there. The trend is that we go this way, we can go for very easy compliance to all requirements. And there is a big risk there, in my opinion. Thank you.
I agree with what has been said already. We have to understand that physical presence versus virtual presence, it's 5 against 1.5. We have 5 senses physically, but virtually we have listening and visual in 2 dimensions. So this is something that we have to understand to manage our expectations. For group training, when people have to interact, remote training is really challenging. It's difficult to be done because the interaction is through the computer, then you have to have other skills, hard skills to know how to operate the platform. But for individual training, remote can be quite effective. So I would agree with all the colleagues here that a combination of remote and physical training is a must. But physical training has merits that you cannot compensate with virtual.
Yes, certainly I fully agree with all previous colleagues. I think that both remote and physical trainings have certain limitations. We need to find a balance. As Mr. Fokas said, we need to set some standards and to understand the limitations. The remote training is giving us the advantage that we can set it at easier and we have maybe more participants. But I think it's also challenging because we need to keep the attention of trainees at all times. And again, the post-training is sometimes difficult. The post-feedback from remote training sometimes is very difficult. Instead of have the opportunity of a break to discuss physically real time, to adjust our training if required during the second session, this is very difficult to be done in remote session. But certainly both are here to stay. And if we find the standards and we set proper policies, we can benefit from both.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor?
Can I add something, please, on this remote training?
Please, Dimitri.
Our experience shows that it's harder for the trainers to do the training, the remote training, compared to a classroom. So our trainers had to be trained and find other ways to deliver the remote training in an efficient and effective way. That was a challenge. It's still a challenge. Not all courses and not all trainers can deliver this remote training. Thanks.
We have a question from the floor, please.
Yes, are you aware of the creation at European level of the METNET and the MSF forum, which puts in contact the maritime training and education providers with the industry? It is something quite recent. It was created through a European project called Skillsy. And it's something that discusses ways, and I think this exchange is fascinating, very informative, but a lot of these issues are now the effort is made to that they are discussed collectively so that the exchange provides, some insights to all participants. If you put Skillsy project, you will find out what I'm talking about.
Can you please repeat?
It's the Skillsy project. Skill and C, one word,
Okay.
Skillsy, and it's a European project. It's finished about a year ago.
Thank you very much. Any from the panelists knows about it? Thank you for the information. We'll look into it. Thank you. Let us go now to SIRE 2.0. And I would like to ask Tassos 2 questions. What does SIRE 2.0 brings to our life? What changes does it bring to us for the people on board, for the offices? And since I know that Tsakos has participated in the initial stages, the transition stages, what is your experience, your feedback from the transition stages? Thank you.
Certainly is a major change. We need to accept that the inspection process will be digital. This will give the information of real-time data. We will have the opportunity to review and perform corrective actions on a better way. So we have plenty of data. Of course, there's a challenge how you will analyze this data in order to have a long-term benefit. As regards our participation, we had the opportunity to participate since the very beginning in SARE 2 process. Up to now, we have more than 18 inspections. What we saw is that the seafarers understand the challenges, but at the same time, they feel comfortable to react. It's very important to pass the message worldwide that seafarers are professionals and they can handle this new challenge. On the same time, we recognize that the inspectors are focusing more to process and human. They are still trying to explore, also the inspectors from their end, how the system is working, what are the expectations of the system. And the data that we are receiving now during the trials is giving us some trends, but we need to see the program live. We need to see how the inspectors will react when they know that the reports will have commercial value, something that now does not exist, and to see how the industry will react in terms of energy companies, how they will review the reports, how they will assess the reports, and how they will recognize that the vessels that are running now with SARE 1, the same vessels with the same officers and crew will run with SARE 2.
Anybody else wants to add experience from their companies?
For me, the most important thing that SARE 2 has brought up is the concept of all of us to understand for every single question in the inspection process has an element of process or software, an element of hardware, and an element of human factor. It means that for the same question, there might be a subject of concern, as they say it, subject of concern, what is inspected, related to the hardware or to the software or to the human factor, how the human relates to the hardware and software. This is what they call the new concept of subject of concern, and for every subject of concern, we have three subjects of concern: human, hardware, software. For every subject of concern, there are nature of concerns. What is to be further investigated? This concept, I think, is new. It was not before, and this is what we need to educate our seafarers on. And not only seafarers, the inspectors also have problem to accommodate this new concept. And then another new thing is the fact that the pre-inspection questionnaire, which is an outcome of the COVID period, that inspectors were preparing themselves prior going on board with things that they can accommodate and they can conclude prior boarding the ship, so that the physical inspection is devoted to the tour. And this is something that we have also to educate our seafarers on.
Can I just add, with our fleet profile of about 120 tankers, we had to take these quite early, at early stages. So we have worked together with an IT provider, the Kaiko platform, where we developed with them the tool to train the people per position on board the ships and to use also for the trials of the inspections. What we have seen is that there's a lot more engagement of the people through the inspections regime, so this is interesting. But also we noticed that the recommendations from the typical 1, 2, or 3 that we had jumped to 8 or 9 and 10. So this is also obvious that the recommendations and the information we get after the inspection is going to be more meaningful. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Dimitri.
Thank you. A very important part of SIRE 2 are the interviews. Okay? And we know that depending on the nationality of the seafarers, some nationalities are more reluctant to speak up, etc., etc. So that is also an area that we have worked on. We have developed actual courses for Filipino seafarers to assist them in speaking up with confidence. We use a lot of role-playing on board with the assistance of the vetting department, so there are online role-playing sessions with the crews on board, and we mainly ask the Filipinos to play the role of the inspector, etc., not the Greeks. So yes, this is a difficult part of it, but it's something we have to do in order to be sure that SIRE 2 implementation, which is in 2-3 months, will be a smooth one for us. Thanks.
I have a question for all of you. Okay, with the big companies, you have a lot of people working in the quality and safety departments. You have a lot of trainers. With the smaller, medium-sized companies and smaller companies, then you have to go out and, let's say, involve a consultant. How sure a shipping company can be about the skills of the consultant? How can the shipping companies, let's say, improve on picking up such a consultant, and how can we avoid mistakes? Anybody?
Okay, I'm going to give a positive comment, and so that everybody can think about it before. Well,
he's talking about small companies.
Yes.
You're representing one of the biggest.
Yes, but I have to be as well very. I believe, especially in Greece, you have perhaps amongst the best consultancy companies in the world. So I think that's a positive element with regards to the availability of consultants, especially in Greece. And as a small company, for sure, approaching a consultant is a good option. But also teaming up with other money agents or crew managers is also an option, because if you ensure crew retention and continuation, I believe that's also the way around it, not only through consultants.
Andrea was also talking about the issue of certification and competency of these consultants. I wanted to bring this into the discussion. Tasso?
Yes, I think it's very important that every company, if required to seek assistance from consultants, to understand what can support and what cannot support. It's not one solution working for all. There need to be levels of support. There need to be areas that the company will identify if is able to follow what is proposed. Because it's better to work on a system that you can support, you can manage, you can demonstrate. We have the TMSA example for tanker industry, rather than to try to upgrade immediately your systems, or to think that you are doing an upgrade and after, long term, to be unable to support. That's why, especially with SIRE 2, we have the half picture up to now, even less than the half, because up to now, we see some trials. We know the theory, but we don't know how the energy companies will react. This is very important. So yes, there are people that are working around, but we need to be very careful with the information that is shared. This is my personal opinion, and I think it's general. Because in our company, we are confident to work from our systems to know better what we are doing, and the people that are using the systems to understand the importance.
Thank you. Thank you. Want to add something?
My advice would be that the consultants will not be happy,
but consultancy should be the last of the last option. Each company should, of course, motivate the employees to attend courses for educating themselves, but working on systems and on new things, it should be in-house. Because we know our system, we know how to manage, how to develop, how to change. The consultants, they are good to be there, but as a last option, yes.
Thank you all. I am always considering training ashore as equivalent to sea service. Is technology readily available to replace actual sea service with simulator or another training, another kind of training ashore? Who would like to comment to that? Dimitri.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this brings us back to the discussion we had before about remote training and et cetera, et cetera. We cannot avoid that. This is something that will come, but we need to control it. We need to have clear standards on how this remote training is done. Me personally, I'm in favor of the sea service because not only the technical skills, it's also being on board, being with colleagues, understand how a ship works, its seamanship, its teamwork, all those things cannot be done remotely through a simulator. So we need to be careful at IMO how we move from the actual sea service to replacing sea service with some kind of remote training. This is not new. This has already been introduced, for example, in DP training or in IGF bunker simulator training. This is already there, but very limited on a case-by-case basis. I think it would be wise to move in that direction, step by step, slowly, instead of just thinking of replacing any sea service with any training on board. Thanks.
To add to that, obviously, replacing sea service with any type of simulator, it's not a very good idea. But the important advantage that we have in a simulator is that what actually happens in your experience is that you are experiencing an incident once. Now, in the simulator, you can experience different aspects of this incident. So you can have, now if you see what if I respond this way, what would happen? If I respond that way, what would happen? So it's a good added value method, but obviously it cannot replace. I mean, the actual experience, it's invaluable. So, and the actual experience does not only count in the time of the incident, it counts on the everyday routine, which cannot be in any way underappreciated.
I agree fully with what Konstantinos just said, with a remark that, I mean, if we see the future and new fuels, there will not be the possibility to train the people at sea. We will need an industry-wide training possibility that we work together with the engine manufacturers and create the classroom and simulator training so we can train seafarers moving forward. It's, especially decarbonization, is not going to be any one company's target. We will all work together towards that. So we will need a very big industry move so that we work towards training our seafarers in the future, collectively.
Thank you. Anybody else?
What I would like to share with you is that training on a subject and applying the subject is a completely different thing, particularly when it comes to emergencies. Because, okay, you are in a simulator, you are facing with an incident, but you know that whatever you will do, there will be no consequences. And this is completely different, does not reflect the reality, because in reality, whatever you do reflects, has consequence. And so it means that in simulators, you cannot really assess the skills of people in, and this is soft skills, in how they respond in emergencies, how tough they are, and how they take correct, quick decision. Decision making is, in this situation, is very important. And to this respect, I would say that training ashore will never replace the service experience, and advancing the giving certificates for advancing the promotion of seafarers is not a good way ahead. Seafarers should work on the field, be faced with situations, and this is how they educate themselves. And this cannot be replaced. Training ashore can help, but cannot replace the service experience.
If I may add, I fully agree with all colleagues. Also, another important factor is the interaction with others. Beyond the training with simulation, which maybe is useful under certain conditions, we cannot avoid the interaction with others. The people are reacting differently when they are alone and they feel that they know a task, and maybe totally different with others, with external parties that are affecting vessel operations. So I think that we need to focus on a combined solution.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Mr. Zachariadis.
Thank you. After this, after the panel, the next panel that I speak, I have to run to another panel, and it has to do with crew mental health and well-being. And I know it might be a little off topic from what we're discussing, but I want to take the opportunity to ask the big and serious companies that we have here, and the smaller but serious one.
Thank you very much.
Is this an issue for you? I'm not talking about preventing suicide. I'm not talking so serious, but if the mood of the crew is positive, and I'm not talking karaoke machines. I mean, I don't think karaoke machines are the answer. If the mood of the crew is rather positive, then it is a lot more receptive, right? I'm going to be speaking about a tool I discovered, which I think helps a lot with mental health and well-being. But how big of a problem is it, and what are you doing about it? We hear a lot of talk about crew well-being and mental health lately, but are you doing anything on that, and how are you addressing it? And is it a problem to begin with?
I'll start with this. So I'm a training person, so I should be talking about training modules and everything, but I'm not going to do that because there are training modules available about mental well-being, about what you can do about mental health and stuff like that. So these things are already available. So I'm going to tell you what we are doing, and then I'm going to tell you if it works or not. So what happened with us is, apart from providing...
First of all, before you start, sorry.
Yes.
Is it a problem?
Of course it is. Of course it is. And you see this, I mean, if you've ever been on board, you realize that it is. So it's, that's a no-brainer. Everybody understands this. If you've ever been on board the vessel, you understand that it's a big issue. So what we are doing is, apart from the trainings that we provide, whatever, what we have introduced was the mental well-being ambassador on board. So that's one thing that we do. So what does the mental well-being ambassador is doing? First of all, we make this ambassador to be elected from the crew itself, and we make this person to be, we want them to be either, we don't want him to be a high rank officer, we want him to be a lower rank officer or a rating, preferably even better to be one of the galley people. So we let them select their own mental well-being ambassador. So what's the idea? What's the guidance that we provide to this person? we tell him every day or every couple of days, try to contact everyone on board. Now, for a tanker company, for an LNG company, we don't have the crews are not in the range of hundreds, so it is possible. So try to identify if there are any, talk with people, right, to see how it's their mood. Try to identify problems early on. And then go back in our toolbox talk meetings. We have also this person involved to provide some insight to the captain, and the captain will talk to the company. So this is what we're doing. Now, you see, in theory, there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is. So the problem is that when we started doing this, we started having requests for, we want one more karaoke, we want one more PlayStation, and get something more for the gym, whatever, which is good, nice, okay, but that's not the idea. What we want to do is, we want to maybe go ahead of time and predict maybe an issue, an incident that we're going to have of this sort. It does work and it doesn't work. That's what I'm saying.
The problem with this scheme, I think, is when the crew knows that his problem is going to go back to the company, he's not going to. So that's why computer-based platforms should help, where it is the computer and the person trying to self-help. Trying to help himself.
You mean assessing
without
the situation?
Without anybody knowing.
You mean assessing the situation?
No, I mean for that person to really open up and get the training he needs or the guidance he needs to make sure, I think, that his problem is not going to go back to the company.
So just one more second. Another very important issue is to make to the people on board available, known and available, all the resources that they are out there apart from the company resources. I mean, the MindCall, the Seafarer Help, these kind of platforms that they can get help from. So, and they operate on 24/7 by phone, by email, by chat, by WhatsApp, whatever, and they can get help, and this help could be confidential. So that's I think this is adding to what you just said.
It's more than that, but that helps. But I would urge you to check that tool that I saw. It's called Learning Seaman, and I find it exceptional, even for the office. But I don't want to make advertising plugs here.
I think we can only agree with you that this is a problem, and it's not only on board the ships, but in our office organizations as well, I believe. So we started 6 or 7 years ago tackling the mental health issue, and I'll tell you where we are today. We have appointed a company to manage the mental health on board the ships, whereby there are many things that are done, but in a snapshot, we have a dedicated free line via WhatsApp and toll-free line from, I think, 250 ports in the world where they can contact the psychologists. The psychologists provide a confidential advice, and on a monthly basis, we get, as management, a report from the psychologists with recommendations. This is confidential, it's anonymous, and is like an advisory to the top management of the organization. It's 3 or 4 people that receive the report, what needs to be done and what is the status. You can be sure that it's a major challenge that we have, but in all fairness, is the more deep you drill, the more things you identify. So there's a fine line what you actually do at the end. But yes, it's a problem. Yes, we need to tackle it. Of course, also what I experience is that by providing the service to the seafarers, you have a benefit, but not all ship owners want to accept this. So they say, some of them will say, no, this is not something that I need. I'm not willing to pay for it. So even if you want to have it, you, the manager, need to pay for it. So it's still an education process for ourselves, not only how do we see the seafarers. Thank you.
Please, Pano.
Jump into the question, the discussion, sorry. It was not unusual to go on a ship where the engine room is very dirty and the only clean thing is the manuals. So, but then we understand that manuals probably is not the right way for training the crew. Still, they are there, but it is very difficult for the people to go through the manuals and to have training. We started with different means, but I have the feeling, and you let me know your opinion, that we have now so many tools and a long, long list of seminars and training sessions that they have to do. So probably they're going to have something like 20 different trainings per month or something like that, while they have their job also. So they're going to have port entries, authorities, bunkering, discharging, loading, vetting. At the end, within all this training material, probably we are losing what is the most important for them. It become something like a routine to tick boxes. Do you have the same feeling how we will overcome and how we will give a really priority of what is important and will help them do the job?
Yes, I would like to reply in a positive way. Based on the Intertanko survey, the question was, are seafarers satisfied? And the reply was yes, by vast majority. They are satisfied with their living and working conditions. They feel they work in a safe environment. We must not forget that. It took industry many years to be able to convince our seafarers that they work in a safe environment. This is very positive. Of course, there are cases with well-being, harassment and bullying. This happen and will happen. And of course, we try to train our seafarers towards that directions, how to identify signals, etc., etc. And of course, there are those available hotlines, etc. In my opinion, they are not used. I mean, our feedback is that although they are available, they are very rarely used. And in our company, we have our own doctors in-house to be able to provide that direct support. Panos is right, sometimes they are afraid to report, but it has happened recently that we had cases where they were not afraid to report directly to the company. So I think this is changing, and what seafarers need to feel is that the company is there to support them. So if you can pass that message to the seafarers, then they will not be afraid to report any cases that can happen on board. Thank you.
And how can you pass this message, Dimitri?
This is up to the company to do it. The company should be able to convince the seafarers that is there for them.
What do the Angelikousis group is doing for that?
Secret.
What we have experienced is that, and it's during the last 3 years, we established, if there is an incident on board with a suspicion of a mental health issue, we are actually utilizing the specific company and they go on board. The psychologist goes on board, and by having out of a fleet, let's say, of 10 ships, if you have 1 or 2 cases, then automatically the other ships get to know about it. So this is an educational process, which is very easy theoretically to say it's happening, but we have seen an improvement and acceptance of this tool by a number of ships, not the entire fleet. And depends on nationality as well.
Of course.
In our company, we are adopting a more simple way of things. And we have used Aristotelian logic. And we started, that was for all, from 2015 we work on this. We asked our crew, who is the most important person on earth?
On Earth.
On Earth. If I ask you, who is the most important person on Earth? Each one of us is the most important person on Earth. Every me is the most important person on Earth. Without me, nothing. So if I am the most important person on Earth, I have to take care about myself. And if I'm working in a team, I have to take care of my team. Not because I love my team, because I love myself. Christ said, "Αγάπα τον πλησίον σου ως εαυτόν." It takes it for granted that you love yourself. So, logic. I love myself, I take care of myself, then I have to take care about my team. And this is creating a culture of team working. And this is what I try to pass. It's very simple. We don't use consultants, but we use simple logic. And it works.
I thought that the most important person on board the ship is the captain.
Every me.
I think we are almost there. Panos.
So, I wish to thank this panel and especially Haris Yazikis for the moderator of the panel. And I would like to invite immediately to have please stay in your seats because we're going to have the third panel, the last one that we have for today. Thank you very much. Close for your contribution. And I will advise the third panel and the moderator, Mr. Stavros Hatzigrigouris, to come on board. We'll present the panelists of this last session for today.
So thank you for coming, although it's the last panel, and you may be tired, and you have to take your cars out of the parking, which is going to be a major exercise. We are happy to have a veteran of shipping with us, Mr. Lavidas, that we have to see for a long time. I had asked the panelists to prepare 3 slides each to show, but there is no technical capability to show these slides, so apologies for having you to do something that I will not use. It will be an alphabetical order for the panelists. So the first one is Mr. Belexis, because he writes his name with B and not with MP. And Fotis Belexis is the technical director of Star Bulk Carriers, one of the largest, if not the largest, bulk carriers, small bulk carriers, and not they don't have VLOCs.
No.
Okay. Fotis has a 29 years experience in shipping and in diverse fields. The first question for you, Fotis, is since the launching of the IMO emissions regulations, the evolution and implementation of alternative fuels in commercial shipping has progressed in a relatively slow pace. In your opinion, what parameters are slowing down the introduction of new fuels in a large scale?
Thanks, Stavros, and also thanks for the invitation from Ms. Vasilaki to participate in this panel, and glad to be also here with good colleagues from the marine industry. Actually, I would say this is a very complex question to be replied, but I will try to put some thoughts. The most important thing is that it is an equation that has to do with parameters like technology, availability, and mainly also not only for shipping itself. So I'll try to explain a little bit more in detail. So in order to move from the normal fossil fuels that we have been using for all these decades, we have to have the technology. So technology means equipment, ships designs that they can cope with the new alternative fuels. I named few: LNG, ammonia, methanol, hydrogen, and nuclear. So few of these technologies are already available, like methanol. and we have also the equipment and the designs to work with them. On the other hand, it's not only the equipment itself, but it's also the availability of the fuels, and this availability is one of the main issues that is keeping the evolution and the use of the fuels. Adding on that, we also have the pricing, and the pricing is also one of the most important factors here. Is not to forget that the main OPEX category for a ship is the bunker cost, and at least on what we have read already is the cost of this alternative fuel will probably be like 2 times or 3 times more what is the fuel oil cost that we are paying. I will add one more complexity, and this is the competition. So shipping is not by itself chasing decarbonization, is also other industries, shore industries, aviation, transportation, heavy industry, and they need also to have some piece of this alternative fuel themselves, and most probably they are the ones that they are going to drive the prices. So it's very difficult to say what will be the solution here, but I can, for example, think that if we could have technologies like nuclear to be used on shore in order to ease the decarbonization and the reduction of the alternative fuels on the shore side, then there would be some more chances for the shipping to use these alternative fuels at prices that will be normal and without competing to the shore. Thanks.
Thank you. 40-second question for you. The average age of the world fleet is about 11 years. Do you think that there is still time to improve the efficiency of the existing fleet?
Okay, thank you, Stavros. Actually, this gives me a good point to say 11 years is actually what is the average age of Star Bulk, which our company is managing 161 ships. 11 years old. So how do we cope? And this is actually why we believe there is still room for improvement. Number one, we have a ship, we have an asset, so we have to maintain the vessel in a good condition, and that goes with the maintenance of the asset, plus few tweaks where we can improve the efficiency of the ship. For example, improving the propulsion efficiency, use of energy-saving devices, simple things that they can help us go a little bit more and move forward. But this is not enough by itself, because we don't have to forget that we have to operate the ship. So operation optimization, which is something that has been discussed a lot the last years, and it's been a subject of controversy and a subject that many people believe that there are solutions. So voyage optimization, operation optimization means better housekeeping, understanding your asset and trying to keep your asset in the best possible way and complete your voyage from A to B in the best possible and fuel-efficient manner. And there are tools today to be able to do that, and there are a lot of solutions and ways to improve that. And I believe most of the companies are already move on that direction.
And for new buildings, 40, I believe you have a few, not many, new buildings on order.
Yes.
So what will make these ships to excel, to distinguish?
Okay, well, new buildings, we have a few, we have only 5. I would say for a large company like ourselves, 5, it's a small number, but it's something. And the biggest issue today is that there is a big appetite for ordering ships, so there are less opportunities for a company to place orders. So what we should be saying about new builds, first, the existing technologies that we have is still fossil fuel. This is the majority of the designs that we see in the market. And when it comes to select a design, or what we aim to do is to improve the design as much as we can provided, of course, that the shipyard has the competency, capability, and appetite to do it. So selecting the proper consumers like main engine, find the appropriate main engine size, type, and tuning that will help you to achieve, at least from starting point, the best possible fuel oil consumption. Few more additions, improving aerodynamic designs, improving also the energy, electric energy requirement on board is also areas that somebody has to look at. So I think there is a lot of these solutions, and as long as a company is putting some effort on that, there is a possibility to get a quite improve in terms of fuel efficiency designs.
Okay. Panos is eager to ask some questions.
Your new buildings are only with conventional fuel?
Yes, there are. Actually, they're in the same shipyard that you are building as well.
But you can both burn biofuel.
Yes.
Good.
Bio, yes. Okay.
Okay. Last question for you, Foti. Carbon capture. You think it's something that we will see happening in the next few years, or it will be far?
Okay. It's a very interesting subject, actually, and it's a lot been said, and a lot will be more in the future on this issue. So, carbon capture is actually, in simple terms, is a technology where we are able to capture and, of course, store CO2 emissions. And we have at the moment a worldwide commercial fleet, more than 80,000 ships. We just mentioned before that it's 11 years the average age. So we still have vessels that will continue using fuel oil going ahead. So carbon capture may be a solution, not maybe for all type of ships, but at least to help vessels to continue trading. And there is, at the moment, there is no regulatory framework about carbon capture where we are allowed or we are allowed to use it, but whether we will get some credit out of it. We definitely see that it's a solution, a viable solution, and an advantage for the shipping, which use mainly still fossil fuel.
Thank you, Foti. Now we have another eager person in the panel. Yanni?
Thank you, Stavros.
Yeah, me too. Carbon capture.
Good afternoon to everybody. We are happy to be in the Greener Summit because it has the color of our team, Panathinaikos. I don't know how many you are here, but I would like to make a comment on carbon capture. In the last 3 MEPCs, IMO kicked the can down the road. So as Foti said, very correctly, there is no legislative framework for the subject. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen until the spring of 2025. There is a working group that has been formed, and we all hope that they're going to solve the difficult problem of verification and survey of carbon capture systems. The technologies are there, but we don't have the correct means to give the proper credit. We don't want to give credit to more than one entity. This is the problem. And how do you verify? So all these problems hopefully will be solved at MEPC 83.
Okay. So this is before the ammonia engine, correct?
Why ammonia?
I said it's before the ammonia engine.
Although ammonia is not a carbon-free fuel, contrary to popular belief. You need pilot fuel.
So carbon capture has many problems, big size, expensive, but I think the biggest problem is what do you do with the CO2 you collect? Now, yeah, well, Coca-Cola, nobody would want to take it. And the funny thing is that, you know, to make green methanol, you need green hydrogen and CO2. We should say you need green hydrogen and green CO2. The CO2 you collect from the carbon capture systems is not allowed to be used to make green methanol. So it's a useless CO2 practically. So if the regulation changes, maybe there'll be use to make green methanol. But if you cannot use it to make green methanol, then you just need to store it away somewhere. And that's a big issue. Yes, Jan.
Yes, Panos is right. You don't get, it is allowed to use it, but you don't get credit for the CO2. Unfortunately, the only carbon that you get credit for is the one that you get either from the biofuels or waste matter, or the one you get from the air, direct air capture. And this is very expensive and very difficult to get. 0.03% the amount of CO2 in the air. In the exhaust gases, 5 to 6%. You realize what is easier.
Thank you. I just wanted to jump onto the discussion on carbon capture as well. So as I think on the carbon capture side, it's there are actually different things to consider. One is the regulatory side, as we have been talking about, and one is the whole infrastructure side that was also mentioned. This, of course, also needs to be in place if this is going to materialize. Another aspect of it is, of course, also the cost side and the potential fuel penalty that you will have on the systems. However, we do believe that looking ahead with the variety of solutions that we probably need to consider and to implement for various vessels, we believe that carbon capture will be part of the solution. Probably, if we can estimate, difficult to estimate of course, but maybe in the next 5 to maybe 10 years, that we believe will be a reality. And I would also encourage you to download our latest white paper on carbon capture that we released yesterday. This is addressing both onboard aspects, but also the value chain aspects. So have a look at that. That's freely available to download and interesting reading.
May I? Well, carbon capture is considered as one of the 4 pillars for the transition to net zero. It is an extremely important technology, but for us, for shipping, we have to make a differentiation about the purity of CO2. Because most probably a post-combustion system working on the chemical absorption will not give a pure CO2. And actually, other industries consider the CO2 captured in shipping as toxic. And definitely does not have a place in the industry. Furthermore, how to quantify the CO2 reduction if you have a sludge of amine and CO2? Because if the process, which is a very complex heat and mass transfer process, does not work properly, and most probably it will not work properly, then what do you really dispose ashore? A sludge of amine and CO2, how much of it is CO2, how much is it amine? How much to credit the ship as CO2 reduction with this sludge? Nobody knows. If you have pure CO2, then you have an equivalent of bunker delivery note, a CO2 delivery note, so much fuel bunkered, minus so much CO2 disposed ashore, you have a clear and net calculation. Otherwise, with chemical absorption, it's extremely difficult and challenging.
Okay. Thank you, Adoni. Questions to Fotis from the floor? Okay. We continue with the next panelist, which is Mr. John Kokarakis. Yannis is the Technical Director for Southeast Europe, Italy, Black Sea and Adriatic Sea for BB. He has studied in the National University of Athens and in Michigan. And he has been working in the industry for more than 45 years. And he's from Crete, like me.
Not from Crete, from Chania, Crete.
Oh, come on. Western Crete, Western Crete.
Western Crete.
So, Yanni, the first question for you. If somebody, if a ship owner, not somebody, not one of us, wants to buy a ship, second-hand ship, what does he have to consider?
Thank you, Stavros. It is an interesting question. I would say a $2 million question. First of all, age is a consideration, and the condition of the ship, which is verified by an immediate survey there. We have to check the maintenance records from the company.
And we have the transfer of class agreement to safeguard the interests of the owners,
of course,
the buyer and the seller.
Of course, we have to go to class because a lot of times you can fish out interesting repairs among the documents. So my advice is go to the class records as well, besides the information provided by the selling company. The engine propulsion engine and propulsion system are very important. How old is the engine? Can it be upgraded? Very importantly, the fuel consumption records, not only at one load and speed, but at various, the history of fuel consumption. And in case, in the fortunate event that there is monitoring devices, you can get an average and compare the average that these ships burns compared to the industry average. This is always a nice consideration. The other is the possibility of regulatory compliance. This is important. A lot of charterers would like to hire the most upgraded vessel on the basis of EEDI. What phase we have? EEDI phase 2, phase 3. This is not necessarily good because to achieve compliance, a lot of times we have to massacre the MCR of the engine continuously, so this is not always good. The hull design is important. Does it have a bulbous bow? Does it have optimum lines? It can be checked. Also, the optimization of the propeller. We know that the matching of engine and propeller is very important. Is the propeller optimum? I remember from school, we put the maximum diameter and then we computed the pitch in such a way that we could get the maximum efficiency. So have they done it that way? It's important. You may want to consider as an amendment to change the propeller. It is not such expensive. You give the old propeller, the difference in price, it is not very significant. Does the vessel have energy-saving devices? Very correctly, Mr. Belexis pointed out before about the need to not only to have alternative fuels. These alternative fuels today do not exist. We do not have green fuels. But what does it mean? That we are sitting idle? No, we can apply energy efficiency enhancing measures and devices. So even a PBCF, propeller boss cap fin, with a minimum 1 to 2% gain is welcomed. So for the charterers and the resale value of the vessel, it makes miracles. We check at the potential for retrofits. Is there enough space? Because space is of the essence. The footprint. Does it have, what type of coatings we can apply? Can we use the low friction and defouling? We hear stories about silicon-based coatings and they seem to work. We have a lot of savings. Check if there is energy management system. Auxiliary systems. Every small detail, mandate, careful study to make sure that we're not going to get a stranded asset in the future.
And
John actually is right. This is technically what we have to check. But in reality, the ship owner will check 3 things for a second-hand ships, but even for the new building. And these are price, price, and price. So everything has a cost. If the price is right, then all ships are good to buy.
My late ex-owner was always saying, check the ship owner from whom you are buying ships.
This is another.
Okay. And Yanni, what are the incentives given to ship owners today? Either to improve the design, to improve an existing ship, or order a sophisticated new building.
I'm tempted to say that we have, ships today are subject to myriads of regulations. I would say they are over-regulated, and the most recent disasters are the European, the regional regulations. So the incentives there is that if we reduce the emissions and the intensity of the emissions, CO2 per transport work, we have gains of money. So we have to make a study to see how much money we're going to save in case we apply energy enhancing energy efficiency enhancing device. So that's one incentive. We can study and compare CAPEX with the OPEX, the reduction in penalties that are coming, especially in the later years after 2030, and see what is the return of investment time. The shorter it is, the better. Also, we have the Poseidon principles. We are all familiar with the green movement. It is not only the Poseidon principles, which is a conglomeration of banks that reward the green, within quotes, vessels. So other countries like Norway, for example, give you breaks in the port fees, you get low interest loans. There are a lot of interests that push the owners to be as green as possible. This is not always easy, but it is necessary to survive. It is not essential. It is the only way. It is a pathway that we all have to follow for the viability of shipping.
Yes, Yanni, but we have seen major charterers coming into the market and saying, I'm going to look on what is the efficiency profile or greenhouse gases emissions of ships, and we're going to charter them on a preferential. If you have a good ship, we're going to charter it on a preferential basis.
Yeah, this is what I said. For example, we have Cargill with the right ship. All of you are familiar with right ship. If you're rating, and I'm quoting the old system, the old grading, if you are below E, like from F and above, you are in trouble. You cannot get any chartering from Australia. So definitely, and I will not quote CII as the measure because it's unrealistic, soon to be removed.
Can I disagree?
You, most of the times you disagree.
Yeah. Well, I'm the operator. I'm the operator here, so I have a little more experience. You're not in trouble if your ships are F. You are in trouble, like you say, from a certain charterers from Australia who happen to be right ship owners. Those are the only ones who care about the rating of your ship. None other charterer cares about the environmental rating of right ship. Because as CII, it's worthless. It's a worthless rating. So, and the proper charters, they know. They want to know your guaranteed speed and consumption. They don't care. about whether you are A, B, C, or even F. And it's only when you get somebody from Australia who says, yes, you have a very good ship, but it's F, and our policy says we cannot charter you. And we say, okay, bad luck.
By the way, there is no F any longer.
Yeah, I mean, until recently, but it's the same thing. So it's good that the market knows that those ratings don't really represent the real efficiency of the ship. As far as CII, that's a trade efficiency metric, not a ship efficiency metric. So that's my small disagreement.
Let me tell you, in the last MEPC, International Chamber of Shipping made a proposal to characterize CII as a temporary index. And this was summarily rejected by all member states. So CII remains. Yes, we agree it is not a realistic index to be revised, but this will happen after 2026. And by the way, RightShip continues to be, although I have to admit that as a member of Bureau Veritas, I used to get inquiries by the companies, please help me to increase my rating. Not anymore. So maybe Panos, you're right. But Cargill still, Cargill who is...
Yeah, but don't restrict what we discussed with the bulk carrier market. We have major container ship charterers saying we are not going to transport our merchandise unless the container ship is fuel efficient. And we have the oil majors, if we talk about the tanker market, that they have an Excel, a matrix, and they say this ship burns this amount of fuel, so they will get a lower rate.
Incidentally, the National Technical University Transport Laboratory has made a study that said the major polluters are container ships. A large percentage of that comes from them. So
but you don't transport trousers and clothing in bulk carriers, not yet.
We will see.
Okay. Okay. Foti, you wanted to say something.
Actually, I'd like to share also the operator experience on the RightShip and the greenhouse gas rating that Panos just mentioned before. It's a metrics. It's not actually a metrics that will not allow you to operate or create you unnecessary inconvenience. And it's actually a metrics that you can easily work around in terms you can technically do things on the ship without spending huge amount of money to improve it. And of course, the way this index is designed is that it's a dynamic index. As many people are improving their vessels, they are supposed also the benchmarking to be different and vary continuously. So, but still, what we see operating out of Australia mainly is that it's not an issue you cannot handle as long as you are prepared and you know your homework.
Thank you, Foti. Thank you, everybody. If you were asked to select, to choose, say 3 important items for a new building vessel, to improve, to make it eco-friendly, what would you select?
Thank you. This is a very good question. Of course, depends on the type of ship. I will try to improve the hydrodynamic design of the stern, because this is where the action is, and the propeller, that's where we get the thrust. So I will put, and the money are not too much, so I will either put PBCF as a minimum, combined preferably with a Mevis duct or a snake-tooth duct. And this is one part. Although I know that my colleague Fotis will disagree, I will try to convince the owner for the benefits that we get of the silicon-based anti-foulings, because I hear reports of tremendous benefits, although they're expensive and they are they are very sensitive, and some of the operators will tell me that they are easily damaged, but I hear good reports about silicon-based, and as a last resort, alternative fuels we cannot use now, but I see a lot of hope as a transition fuel with biofuels, especially the European community, which we have to comply with in the ETS and FuelEU. And by the way, I would like to take the opportunity to tell you that the proposal that EU made at IMO last March for the midterm measures is much stricter than the FuelEU Maritime. The limit carbon intensity is much below what is actually now the limit in FuelEU Maritime. I hope that this will change, will not be voted this fall at MEPC 82. So use biofuels in the transition.
Okay, thank you, Yanni. You want to say something without answering to a question?
I will say that embrace a sustainable and digital future.
Good. Mr. Morten Liro, he is the Managing Director of the DNV Maritime Advisory Center, 25 years experience in various technical and managerial jobs. And his focus is to support clients tackling global transformation and improving performance, safety, and technical integrity. You are saying nothing about digitalization.
We can come to that.
Okay. So first question to you. What the vessel of the future look like? First of all, define future.
Let's see if technology is with us. It actually is. All right. So, refreshing our memory on the question. It was the vessel of the future. So, let me first draw your attention to alternative fuels. We have a database where we basically gather information on alternative fuels on vessels and also available production facilities and capacities around the world in our alternative fuels insight database. This is a portal that is available for everyone to access. And we have used information on future available alternative fuels to estimate the total capacity on alternative fuels in the future. And then we have also compared that availability to what will actually be the demand from shipping. So if we look at 2030, then we see that if shipping is going to transform to using alternative fuels by meeting the expectations of the regulators and policymakers, shipping would basically need to spend something like 30 to 40% of the entire production of alternative fuels in the world. Currently, shipping is consuming around 3% of the produced energy around the world. So which means that there is a huge gap there, and that gap needs to be filled with something else. And we believe that having these uncertainties in place is important, that proper decarbonization plans are made, both with respect to the single vessel, but also at the fleet level. And also taking into account availability of alternative fuel, potentially sometime in the future, and also the measures that is actually available to implement right now. Energy efficiency measures is definitely one of those. Those are readily available. Many are already in place, and there's also a lot of both operational and technical developments being seen to support energy efficiency improvements on board vessels. We have done further simulations, and we have also seen that energy efficiency measures can really be also a positive long-term measure for shipping. We have estimated through simulations that if you look at 2050, then energy efficiency can contribute to maybe 1/3 of the savings that is needed to reach the ambitions by then. And I think also, as was said before, energy efficiency measures, maybe in combination with biofuel insetting, that's something that many are choosing right now, and that's something that we believe that will be a good thing to consider also moving forward, depending on you being able to actually get hold of that biofuel. Because that's also a scarcity. So if everyone wants biofuel, someone will probably lose. But at the moment, how it looks, then we believe that the combination of looking at energy efficiency and biofuel insetting can be a really good strategy to choose. Then I think also it's important to reflect on the fact that looking at the available measures now on the short term, different ships and different ship types will benefit from different solutions. If you're a liner company or if you're trading in tramp, you will have different considerations when it comes to what is the best strategy for your decarbonization plan moving forward. And also if you look at, for instance, tankers, there will be different solutions if you're having a product tanker, if you have a crude tankers, or if you, for instance, have shuttle tankers. You will have different needs for energy for the different ship types, and you will be basically attacking different type of challenges on board to get the energy consumption down. Of course, there is also interesting technology developments out there, like wind-assisted propulsion and air lubrication systems. These are also measures that we believe have a place in the future design and operation, even for retrofitting. And depending on the size of the vessel, we have seen, for instance, on wind-assisted propulsion, savings maybe up to 5–10% on smaller vessels, of course, again, depending on what type of ship and what kind of conditions that the ship is sailing in. But for some of the bigger vessels, then we have seen savings of up to 20, even 30% in some of the projects, pilot projects that we have been involved with. And that's actually quite substantial. If you look at the financial side of this, if you take, for instance, an Aframax tanker, then if you estimate, if you aim at maybe 10–20% saving on energy efficiency, which, yes, it's a lot, our calculation, rough calculation, show that you could potentially, with the current environment, save around $4 to $5 billion a year on such improvements on efficiency. So there are various solutions, various technologies available, but I think it's important to find the right solution for that particular trade and vessel type that you actually have in your fleet.
And how can class societies in general help the ship owners to make the right decision? You will not pay a penalty, don't worry.
Thank you for that. I think there are quite many different things that we can do in that space. And one thing that we are working on right now is, and have been working on for some time, is to develop some good practices, what we call recommended practices, on how to actually measure savings. I mean, there are a lot of technology providers out there that are promising various levels of savings on various types of technologies. And it can be challenging to make a decision on what numbers to believe in. So we have, for instance, developed recommended practice on vessel technical index, which basically takes the reference or take the case as in new, and then measure the kind of degrading defect, for instance, on growth on the hull and propeller. And you can, through following the index throughout the life of the vessel, you can get indications, for instance, on when it is time to wash the propeller and the hull. So these measures can also be used on general energy-saving equipment as a means to have a kind of a neutral reference point and a possibility to neutrally verify what makers are stating on the performance on the equipment and what we actually see in actual operation. And this can give you a good opportunity to have stronger confidence in which technologies and what measures to actually choose among all the different choices that are out there. We're also looking at procedures to verify typical on-off technologies, as mentioned with the air lubrication system and wind-assisted propulsion systems. So that also the effect on such systems can be verified and assessed in a neutral way. So I think that is one of the ways that glass societies can contribute on gaining trust and clarity on the effect of the various measures. And that could also be an interesting reference point when dealing with the various stakeholders that are involved, for instance, on the commercial side of the operations.
So if you were to design a VLCC today, would you design it as a vessel with 336 meters in length, 60 meters beam, and 31 meters depth, and with a cargo capacity of 3.1 million barrels? Yes or no? And if you say yes, then what kind of hull performance improvement can you achieve? Because what I'm trying to say is that the new designs is not only new fuels, new engine, propeller, PBCF, blah, blah, blah. We have standard designs, hull designs, that cannot be improved if we keep the same commercial dimensions and capacities of the ship.
That is absolutely true. And of course, well-established designs from the shipyard is also, I mean, it's difficult to come with a completely new, both hull design and completely new designs to, particularly now when the situation in the shipyard is as it is, with limited slots available, then the opportunity space on design stages right now can be quite difficult, I think. But I think you're also onto a point when on let's say the commercial side of things, who is actually willing to pay a premium price on an enhanced vessel design and a vessel with enhanced performance in operation. And I think also there will be varying interest from, for instance, charterers to actually contribute on taking that extra penalty. I think it, to a large degree, also depends what kind of cargo is actually being transported. We also see that some charterers do put higher requirements on the performance of the vessels than others, and consciously going in a direction where obviously the cost of the operation and the vessel will be higher than what it could have been.
Thank you very much. I think it's a serious issue that we have to discuss, and it's not only the dimensions of the ships, if the ports are suitable for accepting the new designs. But as everybody is saying, we have to work together. It's not this is your ship and cut your throat to make it better. Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes to say a few words about digital technologies. How can they help to improve designs?
Yes, so I think digitalization, to a large extent, also now is driven by decarbonization in shipping, and digital technologies can really be one element that could play a part in increasing the possibility to have transparency on these matters that we're discussing on fuel consumption and emissions and so on. And probably this will be more and more requested as well moving forward, that you have the possibility to share data, share performance data and emission data among and across the value chain and between the different stakeholders that is involved in the operation. So I think it could also have a really positive effect on shedding light on the actual effect of performance-enhancing measures. If you have more, for instance, sensors and possibility to monitor the actual consumption on board, you will, over time, be able to tune in on what are good choices, both when it comes to operational aspects, but also when it comes to the technology on board and what kind of effect it has on energy efficiency. So I think digital technologies can play a quite important role in those aspects.
Thank you very much. Next panelist is Stella Spirage. He is Senior Regulatory Affairs Engineer and represents ABS in Ajax. He started her career in Maran, so I'm proud that we have you here.
I'm very honored too, Mr. Hadjigiorgis.
So Stella, first question. Let me find the right paper. Is the shipping industry today overregulated? Is the shipping industry today overregulated? Do we need the right ship number 2?
Well, I really like this question, so I digged into the internet in order to find an answer. And actually, there is no such documented study at an international level, but there is in the US. So in US, there is a study, numerical one, quantifying the number of restrictions and comparing to several industries. And from that study, I've kept a note of 3 interesting points for you today. Number 1 is among the top 5 most regulated in US industries. In the 5th place ranks transportation, and in the 1st place ranks the environmental protection. In between, there are other industries like agriculture. The second interesting point is that inside the transportation category, there are subcategories, and the 2 first are the Coast Guard and Maritime Administration. So these have the most restriction compared to railroad and aviation. Of course, we cannot generalize this into an international level, but at least we have an indication. Though there is this 3rd point of a continuous growth of environmental protection regulations and restrictions. And this growth, in terms of regulation, I think we can generalize it into the shipping industry as well, because we experience this through the MEPC and the IMO developments with the GHG strategy. So I think this is justifiable because we have this climate emergency. As our planet cannot adapt to the rapid change of the climate crisis. And if I may adopt the terminology, I feel that we have a regulatory emergency as well, because our shipping industry cannot adopt to the level of how rapid the regulations are changing. And there is a lack in terms of safety, of the safety aspect as well of all this new regulation. And just one last comment on the safety aspect. IMO has recognized this gap, and they are trying to build this, to bridge this gap through a continuous work which has started from the MSC session 107, and this is still continued. And just 2 weeks ago, when the last session of MSC concluded, there was a very interesting report of the correspondence group which has quantified the regulatory readiness of each fuel and new technology. And in there, if you are not bored yet, regarding ammonia and hydrogen, these two fuels were classified as medium readiness in terms of regulatory work, as there are interim guidelines for the use of these two fuels under development. And in addition, for ammonia, there was a very interesting outcome which waived a restriction in the ITC code that did not allow the ammonia cargo to be used as fuel because it was classified in the ITC code as toxic, but now this has been waived as this proposal has been approved. And at the next MSC meeting, we anticipate this to be adopted with an entry into force date of 1st July 2026 for new and existing ships. That having said, ammonia carriers could be the first movers towards ammonia fuel, because their crews and their systems are already handling this product, probably. And last but not least, from the regulatory readiness of the alternative fuels, methyl ethyl alcohol fuels were categorized as a high readiness in terms of regulatory framework. So this is another option as well. If I have a couple of more minutes, I could share some insights for the two technologies. One mentioned earlier about carbon capture, where from the safety aspect, it was interesting that this report did recognize that there is no regulatory framework in place, but at the same time did not propose to the IMO to take any action for carbon capture and storage. This was extremely interesting for me because everybody is speaking about this technology. And last, nuclear technology was discussed as well and was classified as medium regulatory readiness, because there is a dedicated SOLAS chapter for nuclear ships and a code that, of course, needs to be upgraded to meet the current standards. Having said all that, regulations only cannot bring the decarbonization. We need, of course, the availability of fuels, the availability of the technology. We need funds to incentivize the first movers, because all these come at an extremely high cost. And it's a collaborative effort. Yeah.
I think you covered my second question, which was related to what is the readiness for alternative fuels. But the information that, I'm just reading, I'm not in IMO. What I have read about ammonia is that the CCC committee will be ready next September, and they will see if what they will propose. I think they will propose that ammonia can be removed from the toxic.
Yes, that was approved already, because it was considered as an urgent proposal, so it skipped the normal, let's say, process. And this is already approved, and that's why I mentioned it, because it is a nice start.
As Hyundai said in a presentation last week, if there is an ammonia leak, we will have to isolate the engine room and use a few drones to see if, where the leak is, and try to repair it by drones. That was the Hyundai proposal, not mine. Okay, let's see. So last question for you, Stella. Again, about digital technology. How much do you think that it will help?
Of course, I truly believe that leveraging existing technologies in the digital world, in shipping, could maximize the profit. Digital technologies may serve in form of making communication more efficient, or utilizing the high-frequency data from fuel oil consumption in order to assess the efficiency of a vessel, and having this assessment at place, then make informed decisions on where to go and how to improve the energy efficiency of a vessel. Of course, we hear more futuristic technologies out there in the digital aspect, that they are using AI technology. I want to share that at ABS we are developing such generated AI technology in terms of asking and answering answers related to classification rules and regulatory aspects, because the regulatory complexity is increasing, and it's very critical the information to be shared with the most efficient and appropriate way. So I think digital is here to stay. Thank you.
I also heard that AI technology will help in determining the salary increases in ABS. Is this
I
true?
hope so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Stella. Next panelist is Antonis Strakakis. Say hello.
Καλησπέρα.
Also from Crete.
Χανιά.
Χανιά. 1, 2, 3. Antonis is a mechanical engineer. He has also studied in the field of turbomachinery in the von Karman Institute. He has worked in the ferry and the dry bulk industry for a number of years, approximately 27. And
a bit more.
And he is now the technical director of Marine in RINA. Antonis, thank you for joining us. First question for you, because I know that what you do, it's pretty elaborate. How much can we count on savings from wind-assisted propulsion?
Well, thank you, Mr. Stavros. First of all, many thanks to organizers for the invitation, and I feel very privileged for joining this panel. The wind-assisted propulsion is something which has extreme importance, especially in supporting the delay in using alternative fuels. We hear a lot about wind-assisted propulsion. We hear from majors that there is potential saving of 10 to 15%, and we hear from actual users something like 3 to 4%. So at RINA, we understand this as a distribution of probability, where the probability of a very big saving is very small, and the probability for a very small benefit is very big. And we decided to investigate why this is happening and how can we possibly consider it. But I would like, before answering, to give you a very simple mechanical equivalent of the interaction between the wind and the ship. Imagine yourselves biking on a straight road. You put force with your legs, and then somebody starts to push you from behind. Then you will feel that your legs put less and less force. And at a certain point in time, you will feel that you just turn the pedals without putting any force at all. This is what is happening between wind-assisted propulsion and the actual ship, and the propeller of the ship. The more the wind is pushing the ship, the more the propeller goes away from its optimum design point. Therefore, the gain is practically consumed from the loss of a propulsion efficiency. Furthermore, the wind is a stochastic phenomenon. The wind sails at different speeds and from different directions. So what is the effect of the final effect of the wind on the ship? The wind will deviate the ship from its course. And how the ship will keep course? With autopilot. All ships have autopilot, and the autopilot manages by steering the rudder to maintain the ship on course. And what is the effect of the rudder? First of all, it applies a brake. The rudder applies a brake that is, reduces the ship speed. And secondly, the engagement of rudder increases the load of the engine, that is the engine consumption. Therefore, you have a positive input, you have a force that pushes the vessel, part of the force pushes the vessel forward, but at the same time we apply a brake and we increase the fuel consumption. And when the wind sails at different speeds, which is the reality, and different directions, what the engine will be doing on board? How the engine is controlled on board? The engine is controlled by a very simple instrument which is called governor. And what is the purpose of the governor? To maintain the engine RPM constant. That is, when the wind is pushing the ship, the engine will reduce the fuel supply. The governor will reduce the fuel supply. And when the ship will not have the engine force, the engine will have to use more fuel to cope up with the required engine dictated by the governor. So these engine transients cost a lot in fuel. These are the reasons why we see from a huge potential a very small benefit. Our conclusion is that as the ships are built today, they are inherently limited to gain benefits and harvest the potential of the wind. But of course, there are many solutions that ships can really benefit a lot.
Thank you for giving me this podium. I would like to advertise a future event. In November, the Society of Naval Architects and Marine Engineers and the Hellenic Institute of Maritime Technology, and I do hope, with the auspices of Martecma, will organize a day-long seminar from the Swedish towing tank entity, along which will cover the basics of wind-assisted propulsion, along with various manufacturers. So this is going to be a free event at the V-SHIPS auditorium. I hope to see you there, most of you, or all of you if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanni. Next question for Andonis. Again about fuels. I know hydrogen is your loved fuel, but how close are we? Don't tell me that you have changed your. Don't tell me that you have changed your position and now you like nuclear energy.
Well, for us, we are trying to be practical, and we are trying to support the decarbonization because decarbonization is, for us, an engineering challenge. It is a social demand to start with, and it has become an engineering challenge. There are many different pathways. For us, hydrogen is not per se the solution. For us, hydrogen is the easiest way to continue using an existing, affordable, available fuel, which is natural gas. Because all studies and all literature today suggests clearly that if we want to continue running on a fossil fuel, existing fuel, carbon capture is necessary, and all studies agree that LNG is the best fuel to use with carbon capture. Then, if we have LNG on board, we have the possibility, the unique capability, maybe also with methanol a little bit, with LPG, but predominantly with natural gas, that we can use the pre-combustion instead of the post-combustion carbon capture. We have done an extensive research with the University of Cambridge, which concluded that, other things being equal, the pre-combustion system consumes less energy than the post-combustion system, plus many other benefits. That is modular, it has less dimensions, and many other benefits. Therefore, the hydrogen production is synonymous, is the other name of pre-combustion carbon capture. Therefore, it is a meaningful path to continue running on a fossil fuel, provided, of course, that there are certain infrastructure available. And for this is something that we better discuss in a separate way, because I believe that the task of this generation is not to solve the problem of decarbonization. Our task is to arrive at a position as close as possible to net zero with existing means. And then society will decide to go commonly towards one direction, which can be after 15 years from now.
Thank you, Anthony. Last question for you. What is your opinion on the shipyard capacity? Can they cope with conversions? Can they cope? Because a lot of people are considering conversion.
Thank you very much for this. Please allow me to go back to the previous question. We recently concluded a very interesting study for the decarbonization of the iron ore export trade route from Western Australia to China. Australia is by far the biggest exporter of iron Iron is a very important commodity for the production of steel. And our conclusion is that decarbonization of the sea route between Australia and Asia is possible without an alternative fuel, with the production of hydrogen on board. Now, coming back to the...
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Well, absolutely.
Because there are quite a few projects related to transport from Australia to China and using LNG, using methanol, using this, using that.
Yes, in our case, we have the minimum well-to-wake emissions, and the study clearly suggests that decarbonization is possible without an alternative fuel. This is a very strong message that we really have to keep in mind in terms when we speak about alternative fuels. Now, in regards to the reception of new concepts from the yards, we have made a quite extensive approach to South Korea and China. We were very delighted to see that the yards are very open-minded. Of course, the attitude is very positive because they understand that sooner or later, sooner rather than later, they will be forced to provide to the market meaningful designs. Designs that will really meet the targets of the regulations. And we believe that the yards are there to understand. They are extremely smart people. Of course, in terms of production and slots and costs, this is a very different situation. But in terms of how they understand, how they comprehend, how they support the decarbonization from their design departments, I would like to transmit a very positive and very encouraging message, at least from our experience.
Back to the question that I asked. That's all.
Pardon?
That's your reply. Conversions?
Conversions. Well, the conversion is to alternative fuels or to...
To alternative fuels, to LNG, for example, to methanol, for example. Just to let you know, there are, at this moment, there are about 15 methanol conversion projects. 3-4 vessels have been delivered already to the known container company with the blue color on the top side. And we have not seen so far LNG conversions. One problem that we see with LNG conversion is that because the LNG new building market is booming, there is a bottleneck in the supply of cryogenic equipment if conversions are decided.
Well, conversion is a very interesting case. Absolutely, and you know it also very well, that conversion from liquid to LNG is very expensive, very difficult. That's why we have not seen any of them. Conversions to methanol seems to be closer because the state of the fuel is similar. There is a possibility, but of course, again, you drain down to the same limitations, availability, costs, and of course, something that shipping has avoided to speak a lot, which is the emission of formaldehyde from the combustion of methanol. And the exposure limit of a human to formaldehyde is 1 ppm, 1. And the engine is due to emit much more. Therefore, the conclusion is yours.
Thank you, Antoni. Thank you very much. Last panelist, Panos Zachariadis, who is a mechanical engineer and naval architect, studied in Michigan, 15 years representing the Greek government in IMO, and technical director of Atlantic Bulk Carriers, also a member of the board of Helmepa and Martecma, and the Hellenic Chamber of Shipping. Panos will take 5 minutes extra, because he's the last speaker.
The first question should be, what is your comments about what you heard so far?
My comments?
No, your question to me. So.
Okay.
I want to know how Adonis can take LNG, make it into hydrogen, and then decarbonize the whole route. It's grey hydrogen, isn't it?
No, it's not grey, because the CO2 that is produced from the reforming is kept on board. It's liquefied by the cryogenic temperature of LNG and is kept on board.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay, it's quite complicated.
Well, I really don't think so, because it is contrary to a post-combustion system. The separation of CO2 from the stream of reformed gases is a natural process. It's a physical process. You don't involve chemicals. It is highly selective, and the purity is 99.9%.
Okay, I hope it works out and somebody applies it.
Well, I have to say that we arrived very close to seeing the contract, but it was beyond the normal conditions that the contract was not signed. It was market forces which made the investment practically not justified, not on the technology of the ship in general. We were very close.
So, panel, the question for you. Of course, you can ask your own question. Okay, so the question from me to you. What is happening in IMO? Do you think that, not in IMO, do you think that the IMO decarbonization targets will be achieved, or we are far away?
Well, always the targets.
We are far away.
Always the targets that IMO sets are achieved on paper. I mean, okay, if you say that the global warming potential of LNG is 28, and you give 25% credit to LNG on EEDI calculations and CII calculations of burning LNG based on 28, actually it's not even based on 28, it's based on the chemical reaction of natural gas at the main engine, which exists only in the textbooks, not in the real life. So if you take those numbers, yes, you can achieve. You can achieve the targets, especially the 2030 and 2040 ones, just by burning LNG, according to IMO. But are those the right numbers? Is this the right effect? No, it's not. Because the real warming potential of LNG is 86 in 20 years. They're going to do the same with hydrogen. And the whole push now is the green fuels. And all the green fuels, of course, we're discussing ammonia and methanol, come from green hydrogen. And there is now a big question: what is the problem with LNG and hydrogen is not when you burn them so much, is when they escape to the atmosphere and burned. This is when they do the damage and they overheat the atmosphere. So there is a big concern now about hydrogen when it escapes to the atmosphere unburned. What is the warming potential of hydrogen? And at least most studies, older ones, until 2020, they were saying it's 11. In other words, it's 11 times worse than CO2 on a 100-year, not cycle, 100-year forward, looking forward. From the time it is emitted for 100 years, the warming potential is 11 times more than CO2. But new studies say we made a mistake. That's what practically they say. It's a lot worse. And some studies say it's 60 times worse than CO2. Some studies say it's 200 times worse than CO2. So it seems we don't know what is the warming potential of hydrogen when it escapes unburned to the atmosphere. And number two, another problem is it's the smallest molecule in the universe, so it is going to escape whether you like it or not. And no matter what you do, the question is how much of it will escape. And people who actually make hydrogen, they know very well of this problem. And there is a joke among hydrogen experts, and they say, if you send hydrogen down a pipeline, you can expect half of it to arrive at the other end. So the studies I saw, they say 5 to 10% leakage is considered reasonable. And based on some of the discussions I had with hydrogen experts, that's considered conservative. So you can imagine, again, we have no idea how much is the hydrogen leakage. the hydrogen production is only 87 million tons per year. In order to make all the green fuels we need, we're going to need up to 2 billion tons per year. Imagine now if we are producing 2 billion tons of hydrogen, green or not, it doesn't matter. The atmosphere doesn't know whether the hydrogen it gets is green or not. Imagine producing 2 billion tons with 10% escape and 200 times greenhouse warming potential. Much more worse than methane and much more worse than fossil fuels. So there are a lot of unknowns, and this idea that, okay, we found the Holy Grail, I've heard that before, 10 years ago with LNG. But this idea that we found the Holy Grail, green fuels, and all the regulations that are made at IMO and EU to push the use of these green fuels by making fossil fuels a lot more expensive in order to bridge the economic gap, may do damage in the end. We just don't know. But it seems we've taken our decisions already. So it doesn't matter what I say. We'll know in a few years. So to wrap up, my only hope is that we need new technologies. With existing technologies, it doesn't seem we really are going to have serious reductions. We need new technologies like nuclear fourth generation or a brand new type of better batteries, very light, super big capacity, so we can use them on big ships. Because if you use renewable electricity to make liquid fuels, it's stupid, I call it. It's a waste of renewable electricity. Renewable electricity should be used directly as electricity, not to make green fuels, which then we transport and all that, and we burn on the ships. So we have a lot of issues which, I don't know, we tend to put aside and go with the narrative.
May I? Well, of course, we need always a metric to describe a phenomenon. That's our job, to speak with numbers. The global warming potential is one of the metrics that we are using to describe how the potential of the potential effect of an emission of a greenhouse gas in the atmosphere compared to CO2. The global warming potential is an index which uses an integral from 0 to infinitime, and therefore it should compare to gases with an equivalent lifespan. CO2 is practically living for about 200 years in the atmosphere. Theoretically, we say infinite. Therefore, any comparison of a short-lived climate pollutant like natural gas with CO2 on the basis of a warming potential is not safe. It's simply not safe by definition. Furthermore, the value of the warming potential has been assigned by an intergovernmental panel on climate control. It's not my opinion, it's not Mr. Zachariadis' opinion. It is something which is very different. Of course, we may say that these people are biased or they are good or they are stupid, but this is their job and that's what they do. Furthermore, what we really care here is not the radiative forcing. What we care here is the increase in the global temperature. Therefore, for this, there is another index, which is the global temperature potential. That is, how much is the increase of the temperature on the surface of Earth after the emission of a certain substance. So, and now what we care is the global temperature potential of natural gas in the next 30 to 40 years. Then it is surprising, it's not surprising that the value of this temperature potential is practically the same with a global warming potential of natural gas for 100 years. Therefore, no matter from which direction we look at it, the value of 28 is well justified. Now, about the hydrogen is a very long discussion. I prefer not to touch it now because there is going to be another panel tomorrow and it is going to be a separate discussion.
Okay, let me touch upon the global warming potential. 100 years or not 100 years. You need to compare you need to compare with the same, because methane, when it's first emitted, the first 5 years is 110 times worse than CO2. That 110 times effect stays. Yes, methane dissipates, so you calculate the effect of 100 years. When you ask IMO, why did you take the 100 years GWP, their reply is what you said, because IPCC said so. And in my mind, I said, it can't be possible that IPCC said all the gases you should take 100 years. So I went through 6,000 pages of IPCC reports to find out where IPCC says so. And I found out that in the tables they have an asterisk. They have the different greenhouse gases, and 100 years GWP of each one, they have an asterisk. And down there it says, the time horizon should be chosen as appropriate for the task at hand and the intent of the researchers, or something like that. In other words, they never said you should take 100 years. They said you should take as many years as the project you look at. So when you have something that superheats the atmosphere for the first 20 years, and our global warming problem is urgent, you don't take its effect for the next 100 years. That's my little...
But the warming effect of the natural gas that mostly affects the rising of the sea level cannot be considered in a short time frame of 20 years.
Okay, like you say, we should have another panel on this.
Okay.
Because of my past burnt fingers dealing with these improvements in performance by different hardcore changes, not theoretical ones. You say to go ahead and improve ships as soon as possible, even the existing vessels. But has there been any studies what the effects of the characteristics of the engines and the drive chain of the ship will be by these new fuels if we do burn them? Are we sure that the characteristics of the vessel will stay like we knew them under fossil fuels? Or are we going to spend a whole bunch of money and then find out that the ship is working on a different plateau than it was what we designed for on the existing vessels? Okay, you dealt with new buildings on this matter. Somebody mentioned that, but what about existing vessels? What do we do with the ones we have in hand now?
Well, soon we're going to find out. We're going to find out very soon what will be the effect. At this point, for example, there is no ammonia engine. Hydrogen needs pilot fuel in order to ignite. It has very high auto-ignition temperature. So you're right, we don't even have rules, safety rules for these fuels, and the way we design all these ready ships is by comprehensive risk assessment study. But allow me to say that, based on the previous discussion, that I do agree with Mr. Trakakis on his assessment for global warming potential. Hydrogen is an indirect greenhouse gas. It is very difficult to determine the global warming potential, but I would like to point out about the leak issue that Panos mentioned. I find the 10% leak to be an exaggeration. It's a myth, and myths need to be debunked because our industry has a lot of
Yanni, I'm quoting the studies.
Yes, but let me remind you that hydrogen causes hydrogen embrittlement, which enhances fracture and cracks.
Okay.
So if that was correct, we would see a lot of cracking in pipes carrying hydrogen.
But we do, see.
Well, we don't.
I think if I put...
Anyway,
do not see...
Let me answer to Dean. Can I answer to Dean? Dean, the only fuel of those that we're discussing that you can use as a retrofit on existing ships is methanol. The others, you can't. You can't retrofit for ammonia or hydrogen. LNG you could, but it doesn't pay. You know, for an existing ship, especially bulk carriers, forget it. But methanol, conceivably, you do. And this is true also for the infrastructures, for bunkering stations, bunkering barges. One problem I have with these alternative fuels is that if you go with hydrogen or ammonia, you need to throw away all the existing ships and all the existing infrastructure and make new ones, which are much more expensive. I mean, the calculated number is 9 trillion. Infrastructure, 2.5 trillion. All the ships in the water, 1.5 trillion. Throw those in the garbage and make new ones much more expensive because those fuels are much more difficult to handle. So methanol is the only one that's practically doable as a retrofit and also can use the existing infrastructures, the bunkering barges and all that.
Okay, I wasn't being sarcastic. I was just wondering, because I'm not involved so much, if there have been any tests or any data showing about the characteristics of these ships after using such
Then
such
keep your
fuels.
boat. You may have to transport grain in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, Yannis will settle at 7%, he told me. So Yannis told me he will settle at 7% leaks for hydrogen. So I'll give...
MAN does this testing for the last 5 years in Copenhagen.
The issue is we don't know, Yanni. We need to know those numbers. We have taken the decision to go into those green fuels to produce 2 billion tons of hydrogen, and we don't know how much it leaks, and we don't know its global warming potential. I mean, this is crazy. That's what I'm saying.
We have to consider at the end of the day that the total world is talking about a hydrogen economy or a transition to a hydrogen economy. So, in Crete, what we say is τραβώσουν ο γυαλός, σε τραβαρμενίζουμε. I don't know how to say this in English, but we have to be reasonable at a certain point in time.
Okay, in respect of the question from the audience, just another comment on the readiness and if it has been done testing. And yes, we have been involved in some testing on retrofitting with ammonia. And even though we released our first rule set on ammonia in 2021, we see that it's still a lot of learning to gain and a lot of development that will take place before we kind of can feel that we are confident on this. And I think that is really representative on many of the alternative fuels that we are looking at, that it needs studies, it needs piloting, and it needs development, and we really need to understand all the different aspects, both from a technical point of view, safety point of view, but also, as was touched upon earlier on in this in the summit here earlier, the training of the seafarer and how they are actually going to deal with these new fuels in a safe way. Autonomous as well, yes.
So, thank you very much from my side. Panos will say a few words. Unless there are any questions from the audience. Sorry.
There are questions now. I think that we do not have more time. We have to finish because we are already out of time.
2 questions from the audience. 2. 1, 2.
Can I go?
Yes, a question, not a statement.
That's very difficult for me. But I will stick out to my statement. A couple of weeks ago, we had 53 degrees in New Delhi. And things are getting very, very tough. So this is one thing. The other thing is that the shipping has no single strategy how to deal with that. There are various opinions, and actually there are no solutions. What I would like to say is that the best route here is to improve the technical efficiency of ships and let all the others to other industries which are more concerned. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. having heard all this, all the commentators before, do we really have alternative fuels? Because, you know, having listened to all the the comments so far, I think the term alternative fuels currently is obsolete.
Okay.
We do not have alternative
I
fuels.
think that I can reply to that question. And I will close also. Look, the target of decarbonization, it's actually the mean to have a better environment. The actual target should be a better environment. And we think that by achieving decarbonization, we will have a better environment. All these fuels are considered only for decarbonization, are considering that they will not emit more CO2. We have less carbon oxide in the atmosphere, but they are not taking into consideration what other kind of side effects we may have. If it is hydrogen, if it is methanol, if it is the leak, as Mr. Zachariadis said, or if we have nuclear wastage, that someone consider that the life, it is not 1,000 years, it's only 500 years, and that 1/5 of them will not pollute the whole Atlantic, will pollute only Mediterranean, things like that. However, all of these solutions are considered as solutions for CO2 reduction. So I believe that we should take the real focus on the problem, which is the environment, and to check all these proposed solutions for their environmental impact. Because when we had the first internal combustion engine and the first CO2 emissions 100 years ago, nobody was thinking that now we're going to have millions of engines and that this CO2 will damage our atmosphere. So anyway, we will not give an answer in this summit. I think that we had a useful conversation here. Thank you very much for attending. Please, after this summit, a light lunch and drinks will be offered at the booth of Newsfront Naftyliaki, which is in the number 1118. Thank you very much, all of you, for attendance.